Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michigan Works, and Jessica Top, who is with Michigan Works, has graciously agreed to be part of our board. She has provided a resume to Eric Kajaski, or Eric is there. And we'd like to bring her on board and be able to have her be part of our discussion as a replacement for Elaine. I would like Jessica to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'd like to be able to move forward.
Hi, my name is Jessica Top. I'm the CEO with Michigan Works Northeast Consortium. I've been with Michigan Works for 7 years now, and when Elaine went on medical leave, I decided that I would step in where and fill in the gaps where needed. She unfortunately will not be back anytime soon that I am aware of, so this is one item that does need a replacement, and I would be happy to join the board if you so choose.
So any discussion, any questions for?
So I don't have any questions for Jessica, but I had a question about the general processes, and that is, we talked about this before, and I think there was some thought that Michigan Works was the person, was the organization that had the suggestion to have Elaine Hansen in. But when I sent you the copy of the, I don't remember if it was the bylaws, what it was, I don't think this was a Michigan Works recommendation. I thought Elaine's position was a member at large.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So it's not a I understood you to say that it was Michigan Works.
Maybe I misspoke.
Okay, maybe I misunderstood it. So she's offering to come in as just a community representative
That is correct.
in place of Elaine. You know, I've heard a lot of things about Elaine, but to be clear, has anybody gotten any formalized communication from Elaine that she wants to step down?
With all due respect, she
And I-
doesn't have the capacity to give you that.
And so the question that I have is not one that I'm opposing it, but it's one that I think that the bylaws say that a member can resign at any time by providing written notice to the chair, or the group can decide to replace her. And so I'm just bringing up the formality. I think we have to first agree as a board that Elaine needs to be replaced, and then take action on Jessica Tom, correct? The
Yes.
two Ps.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think that's the formal way we have to do it. I'm just bringing it up because that's what the bylaws say. That's it.
Well, we can only do it by removal if she misses 3 meetings or demonstrates unacceptable behavior that does not strengthen the mission of Crawford County.
Well, she's missed way more than 3 meetings because of her situation.
So, we'll let that
Yeah.
happen.
Does anybody have any further?
I was just gonna motion that she steps in and replaces me.
Well, and again, I'm not trying to make it difficult, but I think we have to have a motion to remove Elaine first, and that's not a negative.
You wanna do 2 separate motions?
Okay.
I'll support that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I would make a motion to appoint Jessica to the open position.
Also,
sign this part of it. We are looking at about a minute for each one, each comment, and Lacey has a timer.
Okay.
So, we will take the first public comment, please state your name, so that Lacey can write it down, or Colin, sorry. And then that way we can move, for the minute. So who would like to go first, or should we go? Raise your hand scenario, there's a lot of people.
I will, when you come up for public comment and your minute starts, what I will do is when your minute's over, I will raise my hand, and that way you know you can finish your comment. That doesn't mean, when I raise my hand, that doesn't mean you have to stop. That just means that the minute's up and just finish your statement, so you get your full statement in. You don't have to stop. Everybody hear that? Okay, great. Madam Chair, recognize the first person.
Okay, by show of hands, who wants to make a comment? I saw yours first, Matt, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'm Matt LaFontaine from Grayling here, Grayling Township. Just wanted to say that we're pledging our support for the addition to Saab to our community. I know that there's been a lot of discussion. I brought it up last meeting, and I really think we don't want a bigger Grayling, we want a stronger Grayling. We want one that has pillars of strength with hospital, college, a military base, a manufacturing that supports a lot of people, and may they not have 1,000 jobs, and they may have had some tax breaks, but the revenue that's going to be generated from the businesses that are in town here is gonna help pay for our municipalities, our police force, our sheriff, our fire department, all the things that we need to do. That's how that revenue gets generated, through employees working in Grayling. 15 years ago when we first came here, it was a ghost town. A lot of people left to go work someplace else. Now our customer base is probably growing in half again, and all of those folks are average age under 50. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This is in response to Mr. LaFontaine. You've been here for what, 3 or 4 years now?
9 years. My family's been here for
Well,
31.
you've been here for 3 or 4 years. You're in,
9.
and you've been buying a lot of businesses up.
Everybody,
You know, most of us know
Todd,
about
Todd,
what's happening here in Grayling.
Todd, hold on
We
one
don't need
second.
somebody from, you know, many of the here that run the county either. At all.
All right, the public comment is to be directed to the board, not other members of the
Well,
audience.
it's directed to the board too. You know, the businesses, this, thanking you guys is ridiculous, especially if you've been here for 3 months, or 3 years, 4 years.
9.
You know, regardless.
Is that? Okay.
Who would like to go next? Yes, ma'am?
I'm Marcy Boshane. I'm actually from Otsego County. And I would just request that, after Saab speaks, because I don't know a whole lot about Saab. I'm just coming to the game really late apparently. But I would request public comment afterwards if there's any questions or if there's anything that we'd like to say in response to what they have to say.
Thank you.
Who would like to speak next? Yes, sir?
My name is Jim Knight, I'm from Kalkaska County. I'm sure the board and many of you here have heard of me and what we've done in the last 2.5 years for Camp Grayling expansion. But I addressed you and told you the things that I said about the risk that we're taking here of bringing in a munitions factory. What we have here is unique, as we all know, because that's why we're here. Because we haven't had the influx of industry coming in here, we have this ecosystem that is world renowned. I just want to say this to you and to everyone here: is the risk really that much that we can have 20 jobs here that have been promised up to 200, and even that's even debatable at this point. Is the risk worth having 20 jobs here? You have something that's world renowned. Lacey stated it, it's a sportsman's paradise. And that's what this is. Please, your vote is gonna change the direction of Grayling.
Right.
Thank you.
Would like to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. I'm Jim Hawley, and representing the Saab River Property Owners Alliance, and we are opposed to the Saab or any, it's not a Saab issue or it's any munitions or any military industrial supplier that brings those type of chemicals and weapons here. For all the reasons Jim just said. I couldn't have said it any better. We have a fragile ecosystem, we have a river watershed that's under a tremendous amount of pressure already from things that have happened at the camp. Not the camp's fault, we love the camp, we love the military being here, we've coexisted peacefully, and they're a great addition to the community. But adding this military industrial complex, which I call it, expansion to this area, with all that we have dealt with from the timber industry to the logging that's going on, all the cleanup on the PFAS, the water contamination, we just want that stuff to stop. And we don't see this expansion as worth it, especially for the minimal amount of jobs which we can get easily elsewhere. Okay, thanks, Lacey.
Finish your statement, if you'd like. Okay. Just because I raised my hand doesn't mean you need to stop instantly. You can finish your statement. Feel free to finish your statement.
All right, I was done.
Okay.
Who would like to go next?
Yes, ma'am?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She was in the back. I kind of recognized her. I apologize, Anita. I didn't think you saw her.
I did not.
Okay, all I've got to say is,
Could you
I'm
state
gonna
your name,
speak
please?
up for the Saab River. We only get one chance. That river has supported Grayling for a long, long, long time. And if anybody comes in and affects the river, it's gone. You're not gonna get a second chance with it. And I want everybody in here to realize that river has supported Grayling for many, many, many years. Please make sure that river goes on.
My name is Dave Stevenson. There's a big part of this Crawford County economic development being formed years ago. I have a question to this group. Why is it not being followed? Why is the protocol of that MEDC that was working on MEDC, the Crawford County Economic Development, the way it's in the MOU, why has it not been followed? I think if it was followed, this would be a whole different situation you're in. Anybody have an answer to that?
I guess what part wasn't followed on our end, sorry.
I don't know about your end, but there's a procedure that has to be followed in order before the DNR even takes a vote on it. It has to go through here, you have to agree to what they're laying out.
Yes.
And so far.
So then it goes to the next
So far,
step.
we haven't done that. So far, the push at first was the DNR told us that we had, and we made clear that we hadn't. We made clear that we thought there were steps within the MOU that we recognized that were not met. We didn't have, for example, we didn't have the drawings, we didn't have the proposed land use, we didn't have specificity, and we didn't have the environmental review. We didn't have any of those. And so what the DNR told us, and this was back in May, was that we can't start looking at the value of the land until we have at least somewhat of an approval. And this is a discussion the board had the first time we had it, when we had no information about who the company was. And the board, this board, was all expressing concern because some members of the group had met with members of the Saab, at that time known as Project Raven, and others hadn't. The concern was we didn't have any information. And so what we did was held the ability to accept and review under the MOU our receipt and approval of the economic impact. And that's what we're here to vote on. We voted on it already last month, but we're here apparently to vote on it again, is whether or not the board accepts the environmental review report that was required by the MOU. we, as a board, have maintained steadfast that the DNR moves too quickly because they viewed our contingent approval as a approval. That language is not compatible. It's not both contingent approval and approval. So I would just suggest to members of the community, we know what the MOU says. We have to have certain things. Now the question is if we have them and if we accept them.
Agreed, but if this DNR overstepped, that's why there is a MOU, a memorandum of understanding. So then how are they being held accountable? They stepped over you.
And apparently the DNR has agreed that we have the vote to approve or not approve the environmental review. The DNR has not said that to us, but the MEDC has suggested that the DNR said that to them through us. And maybe our chair can pass on more. I think the communication came to her, but the email that I saw was basically the DNR is going to push back any vote until they hear whether or not this group approves it. If and when this group approves it, Grayling Township then gets to vote and decide to approve or reject it. And then the DNR has to go through their processes. In my view, and I was maybe the most vocal, and I'm not trying to say that as a positive or negative, but I was pretty upset when the DNR told us that their view was we already had approved it and there was nothing for this local group to do. I didn't agree with that then, I don't agree with it now, and I know that we made a motion as a board and everybody agreed that that wasn't what happened. We didn't offer any approval. That's what is up.
So Dave, what we did was we did a motion to move forward with investigation of the property, contingent on this board approving the environmentals that came back. And they took that as approval when it was not.
MOU state, that's not, I don't know how they could have interpreted that, but.
Well, neither did we.
Yeah.
Bill Mahaffey, Grayling Township. Going off of what Dave said, how is the board comfortable with making a decision for the community that could impact this community significantly for the future generations, for our children, based on jobs that aren't promised, with an economic impact that is not promised? When the DNR is clearly overstepping the MOU, when the state of Michigan is already celebrating with this factory company down in Detroit, not even in Grayling, okay?
Yes.
They're not hosting that party at Paddlehar, okay? They're hosting it in, Grosse Pointe? I don't have that correct. So we have a DNR that has overstepped the MOU, which is established in writing by law. And we have a company that isn't even celebrating in the community that they're supposed to be a partner with. And you're comfortable with risking our ecosystem with that arrangement, knowing that you've already been slighted in that way? I don't think it is.
My name's Amber Isley. I'm with Kalkaska County as well. Do have a Grayling address. I want to first start off by saying I'm really impressed with the guy in the middle there. All about following the procedures, and as a quality manager, that is something that I really appreciate. Second of all, we were at a Kirtland College meeting just a while back, and I deal with ISO, I deal with all the procedures and policies and the whole 9 yards. And the thing that I called out was every answer to a question on if they were going to impact the community, the watershed, all of those things, it was not expected. I can tell you a lot of things that I've seen in my position that were not expected that happened.
Right.
So not expected is not a guarantee that you're not going to completely mess up the beautiful, pure Michigan.
Craig Valentine, I have a house out on Manistee. I'm unclear whether you're voting to approve the environmental assessment or the sale of the property. But either way, why are we not waiting for the FOIA request to come back that the anglers submitted? That was a question, so I'm looking for a response.
Sir, could you tell us what was requested by the anglers?
My question is, why are we not waiting for the FOIA information the anglers have submitted to come back so that can be reviewed before you're voting on whatever you're voting? I told you I was confused about what you're voting on.
Anglers, Dan, we got emails that had this communication, there was a lot of communication, but anglers apparently had FOIA'd MEDC about what documentation was provided by Saab. And according to the letter from anglers, there was some 9,000 pages that they paid for but had not yet received. And anglers' suggestion to the board has actually caused concern because there's pages that were missing and that were FOIA'd that were paid for and had not been received.
I'm happy to speak on that if you'd like right now to dovetail. Is that okay? I'm Josh Greenberg. I'm president of Anglers at Saab, Grayling resident business owner. Months ago, Anglers at Saab filed a FOIA request with the MEDC regarding the Saab proposal. We were promised 9,000 pages of information within 60 business days. We're still awaiting it. It's now overdue. I believe these 9,000 pages are being withheld by the MEDC until local votes like this are completed. That's 9,000 pages of decision-making information. It should be in all our hands, everyone in this room, you on the board, before we vote and move forward as a community, one way or the other. That information is not here, and that's wrong. I fear we're on the cusp of making a decision with incomplete and missing information. Lots of it, 9,000 pages of it. Has anyone in our community seen 9,000 pages of Saab information? If not, you, me, and everyone else in here doesn't know the whole story. I think the CCEDP should delay their vote until the results of the FOIA are reviewed and in all of our hands. It seems that this is most in accordance with the bylaws of this group and the responsibilities of this board to ensure the path we take is in the best interest of Crawford County.
My name is Jason Birdwall. I'm a relatively new resident of Grayling, and it was the river that essentially brought both me and my wife here. And on the flip side, I'm very cognizant of the economic need in this area. But to really dovetail with Josh, I think we're very premature here. I think that FOIA request needs to be fulfilled. I think there needs to be time to vet the environmental review and get other people looking at that to make sure that this community is fully informed before a decision like this is made.
Yes.
Is there anyone else who would like to ask?
I just wanted to ask one question. Karen Hansard, I've been a resident for, I think it's 15 years. And it's also the river that brought us here. But one of the questions I have that I'm not clear on, when he mentioned environmental review, I don't believe that environmental assessment covered the weapons testing. Is that correct? And should it not? So that's just a question.
I can answer by saying, at least from my perspective, when I read it and I read through the entire review, the review was about the facility that was going to be on the land, not on the weapons testing. I think the white paper by Dr. Packer may have spoken to what her view of that was, but I don't think the report itself, and any other board member that read it. But not the report, the environmental impact statement or environmental report.
It's very difficult to hear you speaking, and sorry, but I think you're saying something important, but maybe it's just me.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, if you could just.
I think the answer, I think she said that, what Ms. Burchett said, and Colin Hunter, what I said was, I think that the only talk about the effect potentially on the ranges where the testing is proposed was done by something, what it was called the white paper by Dr. Bonnie Packer and not by Saab in their environmental assessment. I've read through it and perhaps a different perspective was drawn by other board members, but I don't recall the environmental assessment directing any attention to the testing other than to say that because it's about the use that's proposed on the land that they're seeking to buy within the MOU.
So I guess that's my concern as far as the environment is that weapons testing on range 40 is where I believe it's going to take place. Where the Saab River runs right through. Sure.
Sounds like they have some kind of residual, I mean, they don't put catalytic converters on that stuff all there, just keep it clean.
I'm Wayne Copa. My wife and I have been here since 1989. Used to work at Camp Grayling. I'm out of my depth a little bit because I'm out of the business a while, but I think the shooting of the weapons out at Camp Grayling would be incidental to the other weapons that are shooting out at Camp Grayling and be a very small fraction of that. I can tell you that since 1989, one of the first things that you hear working at Camp Grayling is we have so much state land we can't get any economic impact in here. We even had somebody from the road commission wanting us to sell a tank so he could use the money for paper. You know, and granted, the anglers of the El Sabo, have some history with their FOIAs, and I'm sure that that should be looked at in the light of how easy it is to submit a FOIA to the government today. But I would ask you, please, to look strongly at this and see if there's any real barriers to making this move forward. Because we really are handicapped by the lack of jobs for our young people. There's other tracts of land out there. The DNR is flagged for development. I hope this committee is looking at the opportunities not only to bring these jobs in, but to bring more jobs into our area for our children.
I personally feel that the amount of jobs that are gonna come in to this thing are completely insignificant compared to the possible damage that it's gonna cause.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a flood. Be careful what you wish for.
Can we start and just give me a reminder when we speak? I'm trying to take minutes, and what I try to do in taking minutes as a secretary is make sure I capture as much as I can. Can at least when you speak, can we have you start by just telling me who your name is, what your name is, that way I can at least try to capture that in the minutes? Can I have your name, sir, please? If you not want to provide it, that's fine, I'll just indicate it's not
You want Jeffrey Hoyt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White.
It's hard to do. I live right here in Grayling, right downtown.
Cameron Jones, South Branch Township. We live down on the river as well, so we have vested interest in that. My wife and I moved up here because of that. You know, I have ties to this from the time I was a child coming up here. I'm also familiar with Camp Grayling. I'm retired Army. My uncle was in the Army and the reserves, came up here all the time. We're very familiar with all that. I just would hate to see this town become industrialized and militarized. And I understand the need for jobs. Hey, how about something like maybe an archery factory or something like that? But you know, something more fitting to the environment here. And I know you guys get to make this decision. It's a big decision for an unelected board. I mean, you're an unelected body. We have constituents here. Some of you are elected officials. I get that, but the public sentiment to here tonight clearly is the citizens do not want this. So I would expect that you would vote the way the citizens want.
Hear, hear.
Yes.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that that's 100% true.
State your name.
My name is Garrett Gotze. I'm a business owner in the area. I support Saab. You know, and I'll stand up and say that I support the jobs that'll be coming to this area. And when speaking about the river, I mean, you guys have the marathon that comes here, you have everybody that lives on the river, all the stuff that is already being poured into it. I mean, you have Georgia Pacific, Weyerhaeuser, Aruco, you have everything on the industrial park that could affect the river, yet all of that was approved. You know what I mean? Like, Georgia Pacific is a chemical resin plant. You know, I mean, let's not approve any industry then. Let's not let any jobs in here, you know?
That's also 5 miles away from the river.
I mean, and I think that we're talking about a matter of Crawford County or Grayling Township. I've heard plenty of people speak up from Kalkaska, from from different areas. We're talking about our area. I live in Grayling, you know?
So the past decisions to allow things that may be dangerous is okay now?
Yeah.
And we should continue to do it rolling forward?
That's what he's saying. Billy Joe Miller, Beaver Creek Township. Has there been an environmental impact study done on all of this? And if there is there a way I can get a copy of that to read for myself, please?
You can stop in tomorrow and get it to you.
Thank you, Lacey.
Yeah, you're welcome.
To the board. Have any of you guys ever been up to Range 40, North Bear Lake Road, and go up there, there's observation points where you can actually look down at the east branch of the Saab River?
Yeah.
You can look at the tank
Thank
park
you.
that's out there.
Thank you.
You can see the little buildings they put out there. You can sit on that hill and watch them bomb. And guess what? That's the east branch of the Saab River. You got Farms Lake, Little Timber, and Big Timber in here. And they all flow that east branch of the Saab River right to our fish hatchery. It's already getting polluted. Nobody wants to admit that. I mean, just take a look. Your own eyes will prove the watershed, the hills out there are already bare dirt. And guess what? When it rains, right there's the lakes, the rivers, and it's coming right into Grayling, the Saab River, and right up to our Great Lakes. Now, this would just be, this whole thing is just unbelievable to most of us that's been around here. My family came in 1879. You know, I got roots here. And I really appreciate, I look at our timber, our forest. Some of the decisions out on 4 Mile and the wood industry is just as bad as this decision you're gonna make right here. You know, our timber's going, people are wondering, where's our forest going? It's going right out to 4 Mile, right out to 4 Mile where it's going. Feed the power plant and all the other plants that are out there, just so everybody knows. I suggest maybe you guys take a look at it. The public can go out there and take a view. You can watch them even when they're bombing.
Can we get twosies?
What?
Twice?
You could have threesies.
You don't look at me. That's, let everybody else, if you want
And
to.
the anglers of the Saab sent a,
Did you say yes?
I didn't say anything.
Did somebody say yes?
oh, he got a twosie. I just thought you could get a twosie.
Request calls for water taps would like to speak to Yes, sir.
My name's John Dallas. I've been a place here for 30 years. I'm a former Army ammunition officer. That's, for what I'm doing here, it's not the issue. The issue is jobs. The motivating factor here seems to be jobs. And yet I saw something today on the internet, don't know if it's true or not, that claims there's probably 22 jobs available that are gonna be Grayling-related jobs. A lot of others in Traverse City, other places in Grayling, 22 jobs. Is what we're talking about doing here worth 22 jobs? Number one. Number two, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I keep seeing stories of companies who say, we're gonna bring X number of jobs into the community, and what do they bring in? Half of that, or a third. So they're gonna bring in a third of 22 jobs. I guess they're gonna add 7 jobs here in Grayling. Is that worth what we're talking about now? I judge that it's not. Thank you.
It's not.
Person waiting in the back of the doorway.
Yep, hi, my name is Jack Betty John, and whether you're for this or against this, the one thing, and a comment was just made that I would like everyone to think of is, like everybody else here, or not everybody, but family grew up here, we've been here since the 30s. We have places on the Saab River. I love that river. I hunt, I fish, I love the environment. However, so many people are getting their information off of Facebook pages, and I would just love everybody to sit back and comment sections on Facebook are not necessarily the truth. We all know how much that can go off the rails. So the fact that we've done 3 environmental studies for this, I would really love to see that information projected more into the community and not a bunch of people complaining on Facebook. And that's all. Thank you.
Even if it's the back of another white paper.
I can, if everybody wants to give me 1 minute, I can go drive as well.
Can you do that?
Or it needs to be. All right.
Yeah, I haven't seen you do this.
I am.
Hi, I'm Ryan Nelson Jr., ex-military, retired, all that, been here for 20-some, grew up here. So I've read the actual Saab, like the findings and everything, the white paper. I got it from Lacey himself. Good read, right? Yeah. Super good information about the kind of things that they're going to be doing here, the actual environmental issues that people are talking about, which is negligible. Now I'm wondering where the other research that's been done, not by the miss who actually did the white paper, where's the rest of Grayling's information from? Because I understand we had to have other people go out and do those same, the same research. Where can I find that so I can read further?
I'm not sure which ones I gave you, but we did get one from, the DNR did one, their own. We hired AECom, did the peerless study at our, request and under our guidance. And then, there were some questions raised about the range use and stuff like that, and that's when, Dr. Bonnie Packard created the white papers.
That's the one I heard.
Yeah, so there's 3.
Is there a way to find those online so everybody?
There's nothing online, but I can, I'd be more than happy to, huh?
Our site has them online.
Oh, there you go. Brad, can you say that louder so everybody can hear
Our
it?
website has all those reports. Yeah, we can share all those.
How do you reach that? How do you get on that website?
It's just saab.com.
Okay. Did everybody hear that?
No, but.
That's just the search.
Yeah, it should be.
I'm Jim Shiflett. I live up in Lovelace. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm Jim Shiflett. I live in Lovelace, exactly 2 miles east of the aerial bombing range. And I've been on the RAB here in Grayling now for about a year. And we're dealing with military-caused PFAS contamination to our water. I tried 3 different ways to get the military to test my well, no response. I finally went and tested it, and I have a small amount of PFAS in my well water, so I'm a little concerned about the future of military action here. As a economic development partnership, I respect your role and the idea that you're trying to take something forward here. I wish you would recruit businesses that have more of a flavor of acceptability and desirability rather than seek a business or get a business placed here because of its proximity to Camp Grayling. And I do believe that's exactly why they're here. And I'm not so sure that I'm happy when I hear people write up a report of what they're going to do when they say it's not expected. My career as a corporate risk manager makes me think of, if you can think it, it will happen. And if you haven't prepared for it to happen, then you're in trouble. And at this stage, we're looking at the possibility of more ammunition going into the range and actually being higher level contaminants than what we're seeing today. And the things that are lifelong, that are human health issues. Thank you, Lacey.
Okay, who's next? Ma'am?
Hi, Amy Goff here. From what I hear, it sounds like the problem is lack of transparency. We're not all working from the same set of facts and information. That to me, I think, is concerning, and that's what puts doubt and sows division and fear, because we are getting information from Facebook. I have to tell my children all the time, check your sources, check your sources. Not sure Saab is the best source of information because it's going to be slanted. So we need outside information, you know, like objective sources and information to be provided to the community. I feel like that's our right. Our right, sorry. That's all.
My name's Catherine Hutchings. I've been a full-time resident here for about 10 years, coming up here all my life. My family owned property up here. I have a young family. I just wanted to say that I'm very concerned for my children's future. I see some older generation, I have heard a couple of younger, some generations around my age speak, but as far as the right now, it sounds good, but what about in 20 years, when our kids are grown? If something catastrophic happens, can our hospital handle it?
Our hospital can't
My name is Trent Garner. I live in Grayling Township. My family's been up here since 1965. We came up here to get away from industry. I've seen in northern Indiana, where my family's from, I've seen what big industry's done. We don't eat the fish out of our rivers. The lakes are gross. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres in the county that we live in that are forever damaged by any number of God knows what. I couldn't even begin to guess what it is. You don't want that up here. I'm telling you, where I came from, you don't want that in the Manistee River. You don't want it in the Saab. There's plenty of people in my lifetime that I've met up here that came up here to get away from that stuff. Why would you bring industry up here? They all lie. They all screw up. They all have spills or some accident or some unforeseen, unexpected, whatever. Why isn't it, I don't understand why this wouldn't be an automatic no. I know the jobs, I get it, but not something like this. Thank you.
Thank you. My name's Lorraine and I'm from Lewiston. I recently moved up here about a year ago, but the reason I came to speak to the board about this is because I managed workers' compensation claims for over 30 years. And in those claims is for police, fire, EMS. I can't tell you how many times I have seen those individuals in the line of their job. So it's doing that to those individuals. It's going to do the same thing to the community members.
If there's no more comments, we can go ahead.
Absolutely. Mike McNamara, Grayling Township, and yes, I am from Grayling, born and raised here. And you notice some of the folks in the room were for it because they own a business. And I can appreciate that. We're all, if I own a business, I want to make a buck too. I think some of those folks may have rented their building to Saab already. That's just rumor though. We could talk about the economic impacts of a lot of things. I had a lot of classmates that were very successful and went on. And I'll read you. Municipalities continued tax exemptions for incentives for local manufacturing growth or expansion will suffer long term due to reduced revenues to support wear and tear and roads, all the other infrastructure problems. And these are guys that are from Grayling that went out in life and had to sucker local communities into large tax incentives, large businesses, and pretty soon down the road, they all kind of slowed down. There's a million more things that I think we should talk about. I don't think the board has had that much exposure. Some maybe think they did, but I don't think they've had that much exposure to all the questions. But as you can see, for the people that showed up, a couple business owners, nobody's for it. Thank you.
Name's Rudy Reeves, so I moved up here, 98, lived in Detroit, seen some industry, seen some whoops.
How's that river doing?
Excuse me? My point is, yes, as she said, I'm a little late getting into this, finding out about this, what's going on with this really. I understand they've got this thing slated to go up over the other side there, right by some waterways and things over that way. And the infrastructure, transportation, roadways getting beat up by the industry that they bring in. I get his point, sir. And it occurred to me that there's an awful lot of open area right out behind that airfield. If you're gonna bring that thing in, right behind that airfield, right by the military airfield, where they can take that stuff in and out, once it's manufactured, it goes into the military function, they can take it out of there on the airfield, right off the airfield there, or take it down the rail right there, and avoid using our highways with the trucks, avoid having having munitions going through town, et cetera, et cetera. I was just saying, if you're gonna put it in, that might be a good spot for it.
Okay.
Yeah, Matt LaFontaine, just wanted to. Oh, sorry.
Well, I just want, number one, I think from the last meeting of Kirtland, that they said the truck traffic is gonna be insignificant. And it's anything compared to a roof is gonna be insignificant, the truck traffic. But I just wanted to address, there was an insinuation of contamination out to the Range 40 complex. And, we spent $1 million doing a study out there to prove there was none.
Where do you take it from? Take it from the.
All around the range complex, and it all started with, and I don't know what the history is with the gentleman here. I'm sorry.
Wait, you don't know what you're talking about. Wait.
The gentleman from, Saab anglers might know, because they were sending the Freedom of Information Act that caused that whole thing to happen. And I just wanted to set it straight. There wasn't any contamination found, and if they wanna look again, somebody else ought to come up with the money instead of the taxpayer.
Who tested it? The military? Who tested it?
It was a private lab that come in that was hired through the state of Michigan.
You can't get for it, you try to get for it.
Stop. You're supposed to address the board, not each other.
Do that outside. Yeah, Matt LaFontaine, I appreciate the information about the jobs, and I know that it's gonna be small at the beginning, potentially to grow. Those jobs are gonna help generate different things for the smaller businesses in town. The party stores, the grocery stores, the places that need to hire employees like we have. And yes, we are here to make a dollar, but we have definitely tried to improve the places that we've come into. And I really want everybody to know there's 20,000 cars a day to drive through downtown Grayling. So I was gonna have their own road over by their plant. 20,000 cars a day. If you think something can go wrong, put 20,000 cars, 27,000 on a holiday weekend, a day.
Well, how do you get to Saab if you don't move your?
Okay, stop.
4 miles, you're gonna pass 4 miles all the way through. Oh, yeah, you drive 3-4 miles past all the industrial, past Kirtland.
You let a couple people go twice, can I go one more time? I still would like to, encourage you to have public comment after Saab is done. I also encourage you, I am not for Saab, but I encourage you to stop the clapping. It wastes time, people have stuff to say here, and the clapping wastes a lot of time. Even though, I mean, do your jazz hands, right? If you learned anything from the Democrats, we learned this, right? So,
Honestly?
I would like to also address the reason people go to Facebook is because of the lack of transparency. People have questions. I went to Saab's site, I'm trying to find where he said these are at. I'm sure they're buried somewhere in here. But the first thing I come up with is Saab announces new munitions facility in Grayling, Michigan. It looks like a done deal as you read on and on, okay? So there's no transparency in that. This is not a done deal. As this board sits, they've skipped you even on their own website. I'm done.
I really want to clap for that one. Jazz hands.
I know, stupid.
Well, I got some dumb shoes at best. My name is William Nelson, and, I'm Crawford County, Beaver Township. I haven't been here 5 years, 9 years. My family's been here. I represent 5th generation, and I've seen a lot go on here. And we really should pump the brakes on this until we all get the information that we so deserve. My grandkids can't even fish in Lake Margaret because of the pollution now. So, you know, we have pristine rivers around here and a beautiful lake, and it's all, you know, I'm not against lake, the camp. It's been a part of my life, my whole life. My father used to own, he used to order the food for the troops there. It's not that. What it is they have not been good stewards of this area. And the only reason Saab wants to be here is because of that camp. Now, as far as I'm concerned, they're not gonna be any better stewards of this area than the camp has. And that's all I got to say at this moment. Not to mention the jobs.
We will move forward with the next part of our agenda. I would like to publicly say,
Jobs that produce.
I really appreciate everyone's comments. And we have been receiving as a board and sharing as a board all of the different, emails, whatever has been coming through, so that we're all informed and we have written those types of public, documents. Hearing you in person, we have heard you in person at every one of our meetings, we have always had a part of public comment. We appreciate that. We hear both sides. We hear the opponents and we hear the people who are for it. And we're taking all of that into consideration along with all of our requirements through the MOU. I appreciate you here today. If anything, the transparency, being able to have information, you can ask us questions and we will do our very best to provide you with what we can. And I appreciate all of your comments. So with that being said, is there anything that the board has to share? We'll move forward with Saab's presentation. They have, who is speaking? Okay, Brad?
We have 1 minute.
This isn't public comment, this is an agenda item.
Oh.
So I think we've got some slides for
Brad, would you introduce
Yeah,
yourself?
so Brad Barner, I'm the Vice President General Manager of the Land Systems Division.
Speak up, please, sir.
Brad Barner, Vice President General Manager of the Land Systems Division of Saab Inc.
Basically, you want to turn.
Right, so first, thank you. All right, who's running? Is,
1 second, Brad. So, hearing the public comment and all of the concerns is, I'm hoping that you will have some response to some of these concerns that we have out here today.
Yeah, I think we'll touch on some of those. I mean, the documents that we've uploaded to our website are the same documents that Lacey has in front of them right now. So they're not Saab produced documents. They were produced by a third party. And we're helping get the information out there so everybody on the board can access that. So thanks for giving us a chance to talk today. Thanks for including us. We've got a few other Saab folks with us. Raise your hands. Thank you. So we've got a little bit of information here, kind of This may be old news to some of you. We've provided some of this in the past. We've built in some updates based on the feedback we've gotten during previous information sessions. We've made some updates to our site plan based on some of the requirements that we're getting and some of the safety consultants that we're speaking to. So we'll kind of walk through those, walk through our proposed way ahead, update everybody a little bit on where we are with our hiring. We've actually hired 10 people now, recognize that that's at risk, but we're confident in this process, so that was a decision we made to do that. And 8 of those 10 are either right here in Grayling or they're relocating back to Grayling. The other 2 are in Petoskey and Huron County. So this is a Michigan-based activity, very much Grayling-centric. And just to reiterate, our commitment to the area and to the state is 70 jobs at a minimum, and we really think that's the floor. That's the floor of this. So with that, I'll invite my colleague Ryan Worthen to come and walk through in some more detail the updates.
Ryan Worthen, I'm the primary project planner for the site. Matt, if you could advance the next chart, please. So this slide, for those that have been here at previous meetings, has not changed. Saab is looking to purchase roughly 380 acres. One question that was brought up previously was, would it affect the recreational trail to the west of the proposed site? The answer is no. That is the new Alta survey moves the boundary off of that trail completely. We found that as we were going through it. Development and construction, approximately 120,000 square feet of office space, warehousing, and assembly facilities. Approximately 20,000 square feet of DOD and ATF approved munition storage. That storage is designed to hold product only as long as it's necessary to get it shipped out to our customer, which is the U.S. government. It is there. I've read some things online that say shipping it to the base. The base, Camp Grayling, is not our customer. The customer is the U.S. government. Fully secured 24/7 security presence. That includes armed security, fencing, intrusion detection systems that are DoD compliant. So if you mess with the lock, it sends a signal directly to law enforcement. It's not going to send a signal to one of us. It goes to the law enforcement. And finally, partnering with DOT and Crawford County Road Commission to construct a new roadway that would connect the site to the north up Industrial Road. But primarily, people have asked tonight, how would we move munitions? Everything comes in from 75 to 4 Mile up that new road that was proposed, and then back out the same direction. There will be no movement of munitions into the town. And
that's about a half dozen trucks.
I think a half dozen trucks a week is probably high. There are many people that have asked me how many trucks is it. It's hard to say, but what I can say is the number will be small enough that you probably wouldn't believe it if I said it. If we had an order of a certain number of rounds that the government orders from us, the warheads that would come in could fit in the back of your pickup truck. That's how small the package is. Now, some of the bigger warheads, bigger loads, but we're not talking more than 1 or 2 tractor trailers for an entire shipment of raw materials. So it's not as big as people might think. Matt, could you advance to the next slide, please? So our commitment. So first, both Saab Inc. and our parent, Saab AB in Sweden, have not had an environmental incident in the last 50 plus years. And further than that, we can't find any record that there was an incident in the existence of Saab, to be honest. So we've looked as far back as we can look. Saab AB, our parent company, and their subsidiaries have not had an incident. The environmental surveys, that was brought up tonight. There's been 3. One, it was directed by the DNR, that we submitted answers to the DNR's questions, and we did not get to pick those questions. The second one was commissioned by this township, and Lacey, you're the one that commissioned it, through the company at AECom. They provided us the questions. We did not get to pick them, and we answered all of them. And the final one was Dr. Bonnie Packer, That now is specifically to address a couple of worst-case scenarios, as well as addressing potential impacts of testing on the base. And we answered those questions as well. Additionally, the requirements that we kind of went through, or we did go through, water and risk to the water supply, OSHA, environmental life cycle assessment, so from the beginning of raw materials all the way to finished product and shipment to our customer, all the processes, every hazardous material, and even non-hazardous materials, we provided SDS, the safety data sheets that you can get for any chemical product. We provided all of those. I will tell you that almost every one of those products you can buy at Home Depot. You can literally go and buy the epoxy and the glue. We're not manufacturing, we're assembling. Biodiversity and habitat protection, we just got the habitat survey done, and that, just like everything else, has been negligible. Regulatory compliance, one thing I'd like to highlight with here, we are subject to a really, really stringent degree of regulatory compliance. Number one is the Department of Defense. The DCMA, the Department, Contract Management Agency. So that's the first one. If we can't pass their gates, we can't produce for the US government. If we can't pass the ATF's regulations, we can't be operational. So I've been asked this in 2 previous visits that I've had up here. The township has looked at us environmentally. The DNR has looked at us environmentally. If we can't get through DOD, DCMA, and ATF gates, we can't go operational. So there are other gates and safeguards between now and when we could potentially be operational. I already hit the third-party munitions. The 2 worst-case scenarios, what I'd like to highlight here, there's 2 points that hopefully will give people confidence. The first one is there's no processed water in anything we do. So if you think of a manufacturing process where you would use water to somehow either clean or move product or mix things, there's no processed water. There's no drains in the facilities. The second one is the second worst case was an explosion in one of the magazines. The magazines are DOD compliant, so when I say magazine, think of a bunker, a concrete igloo shaped bunker, earth covered magazine. So roughly 2 foot thick concrete, minimum of 36 inches of dirt over each one of them. They are designed to take the blast and collapse in on themselves. So the amount of air throw that you'll get is minimal at most. In most cases, it will just collapse in. And I can assure you that if something does happen, the last people that would be in control and directing a cleanup would be the company that did it. We would have EPA in here, the Department of Defense would be in here, we would not be controlling our own cleanup. And so anybody that understands how things are manufactured, I think you can probably understand that that's how it works, right? So, the last thing I'll highlight, so the reason I put APT Research on this slide. APT Research is our third-party explosive safety company that we have brought on to ensure we are complying with every regulation. They have the sole source contract with the Department of Defense for explosive site design management worldwide. So we have hired the best company we can hire to make sure our site is as safe as we can make it. Matt, slide please. So the site, the proposed site, this hasn't changed. In the last event we had at Kirtland College, there was a lot of questions of where is this, right? So hopefully, if you know where the sewage treatment ponds are, it's just diagonally to the southeast of that. That is and roughly the blue line, it's not scientific, but that's a pretty close approximation of 380 acres.
Limits?
I'm sorry?
How far from the city limits?
I need somebody that
Right on the edge,
knows
right?
the city limits.
Right on the edge of the city.
Right, thank you for the help, I appreciate it. Next chart, please, Matt. So, for the board, last time we were here, I briefed the site plan that we had. And the next chart, what I'm gonna show you is a completely different site plan. We learned a couple things as we went through this. The first one was that this is completely manageable. It would have worked, but the amount of protective construction would have been so hard to do, and we would have had to answer so many questions from why would you build it that way when there's more land to the south? Why not just do it more smartly? So we changed. We learned. Go to the next slide, please, Matt. So this is it's much harder to see, but what we've done is we've moved the entire facility and shifted it to the south. There's a couple requirements in here that I'd like everybody to understand. It's hard to see, but on there, the widest arc is a red arc. By DOD regulation and ATF regulation, that red arc cannot encroach on anyone else's property at all. So I'm gonna say that again. It cannot encroach on anyone else's property at all. So I was asked a question at the last meeting. What would prevent us from selling the land? If you look at the size of that red arc, if we were to sell off any of that land, that sale would encroach on our own property, and we would shut down our own operations.
Can you point to the red arc?
I can. Or at least are you helping me? Am I to move it, or?
Can you see just need to point to it.
I thought you were the Van White. Okay, so it goes right down the west side, park there. There. Matt, next slide, please. Oh, hey, Matt, go back. Sorry, Matt, go back. Okay, so there's no confusion. I'll highlight the red boxes first. And, all right, how am I gonna do this? Yeah. You're good. You're good. Yep. Like you confused me. Okay, so the red boxes. The red boxes define that would be the first plan bills. Those are to fulfill 2 government contracts we already have today. The building is an assembly building here, 14 bunkers to store product, both precursor and finished product, an administrative building, call it a groundskeeping building where you'd have snow removal gear and other associated equipment, and then a second assembly building. If you wonder why we need 14 bunkers, it's size of the product. When it comes in on pallets and it's stacked. So you need a certain amount of volume. And the second part is you can't mix hazard classes by regulation. So a good way to think about it is you can't put a blasting cap and a block of C4 in the same bunker. Even if you just have one tiny box of blasting caps and one block of C4, you can't mix them. So I go back to, if we don't comply with DOD regulation, we can't go operational and we will get shut down. Matt, next slide, please. Just from a rendering perspective, we've been doing a lot of work on renderings to try to understand size and scale of the buildings. I've been asked questions in the past of how much would you see? If we do it right and we minimize cost, we only take down the least number of trees possible. I think the only building you're probably gonna see is that one right there. That'd be the administrative building where about 30 people will work. And the taller green building behind it is the warehouse that's attached to it. The munitions assembly buildings, they'll be up behind the trees. And the bunkers are actually sitting almost in a low spot and where the land is. So now, by regulation, we can't impinge on other people's property. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you would only see that from the industrial drive, right?
From the industrial drive.
From the free.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So I think, yeah, I guess that was the point I had. Matt, you got I think it's the last slide. Okay, maybe not. So the schedule, right now, we're sitting here today, CCEDP, board approval, and then the township approval that could follow. Then we have to move through a site approval process, which is the part of the township that we still have to get through. DCMA and ATF approval processes could take up to probably 10 months, potentially 12 months. So we have to take the site plan and we have to submit it with all the explosive data that goes along with making these types of munitions. The report size on that is roughly 1,700 pages. They just go through every single piece of data, down to literally the inch of where facilities are located, how far are they off of roads. And I served in the military for a long time. If they come and inspect you and your foundations are off by a foot, you're not going operational. You're gonna dig up your foundation and move the building. So I'm kind of hopeful we measure this right. Construction, hopefully March or April to July of 26. But that would be a phased delivery of buildings. And then we're looking to be operational on one product as early as the first 3 months in 2026. That would be the timeline that we're looking at. Matt, slide please. The economic impact, we've already highlighted this, Brad mentioned jobs. The anticipated construction budget right now, construction alone is $75 million. That doesn't include the equipment that goes inside. Building the facility is $75 million. The estimated construction man hours from our design build firm, it's over 250,000 man hours. So when you think about jobs and you think about the amount of labor that will come, and the amount of money that comes with the labor that's gonna be working 8-hour shifts for 18 months, there is a positive impact. It'll take us about 14 months to get everything built. The hires, I think, as Brad said, 70 is the baseline. So as I said, we have 2 confirmed government contracts right now. To deliver what we need to deliver, it will take all of 70 people. It will probably take more, but 70 is the number that we've mapped ourselves to right now. We've already hired 10. We've already got interviews going for 6 more between now and March. Specifically, we're looking for engineers and manufacturing program managers. As Brad said, a lot of them are from here, or they're military people that left and then are coming back, that have the skill sets that we're looking for. June, there'll probably be a small lag, and then October, November, December, that's when a major hiring push would come, because we need to train all the assemblers to be able to make products. Slide please, Matt.
There's a question on the job part? No questions during presentation.
I got a couple questions too on this.
We're gonna hold the questions for right now during the presentation.
This is the work requirements for an assembly.
Because we hold the questions until after the presentation.
Brett.
No, it's, oh, I'm sorry.
So Brad, I'll defer back to you if you want.
That's great, thank you. That's lovely detail.
Okay, so, we can open the floor up for some questions if you guys are ready. Okay, so, sir, go ahead.
Question, I'm Bill Freeman, live on, or I have a home on 5 Mile, pretty close to the location. We're talking about Grayling jobs, so wondering about the requirements for these jobs that you're posting, if they're gonna actually go to Grayling people, so an assembler, what kind of resume are they looking for an assembler? An engineer, I don't know, what kind of requirements for an engineer? They're trying to address it, it's gonna actually be good for Grayling.
Okay, so the requirements for an assembler. The only requirement would be that they have to be able to pass an ATF background check. So we have already, so at this point we've hired 10 people. I think 14 of the people we're gonna hire need to have security clearances. Everybody else just needs to pass an ATF background check.
So security clearance would require drug screening, education, age?
So to work at Saab, you need to have a drug screen. To pass an ATF background check, you need to have a drug screen.
What else? And a clean risk record.
And a clean risk record. Actually, rather than me saying the wrong thing, I would ask you, if you Google ATF background check requirements, it spells it out. There's like 9 or 10 things, and I don't have it written down, and I don't want to lie to you.
Is it difficult there?
If you don't have a criminal record and you can pass a drug screen, no.
What's the pay scale for an assembler?
We're talking
It's in the kind of $25 to $30 an hour is the range I think we're looking at.
Yep.
Right.
Sounds good.
Yeah, kind of entry level. Yep.
I got a comment, if I could. Well, in the beginning of your presentation, in the very beginning, you said that it wouldn't affect any ORV areas. That's completely wrong. Obviously, you don't understand, you're not from the area. The only place that's open to ride ORVs is Range 40 area, which will be shut down when you guys start firing it.
Talking about it now, road
So when you guys use your boat test out in Range 40, that shuts all the ORV areas down, because it shuts down Range 40 over there, and it's the only place in Grayling that's open. So you're wrong on that, so the rest of it, I just took with a grain of salt.
So I'm David Howie. I've introduced myself to a lot of people. I work for Saab, and I have a place here in Grayling Township. To kind of alleviate some concerns there, right? Today, we're here talking about the 380 acres that's just off of 4 Mile Road, right? There will be some lot verifications, right? We gotta pull some of these munitions out of the process and verify that they work, right? And that's gonna happen at Range 41. That is kind of directed by the customer. How many times that's gonna happen, how often, right? And that still remains to be seen. We think it's gonna be about
80 to max 100 a year.
So not often, right? Not much more than what's already going on out there. I think what's important is that if you get wrapped up in what's happening at 41 and try to derail what's happening at 380, or with the 380 acres, right? And we go away and we take our jobs with us, we're still going to 41.
Well, I live 3 minutes away from Range 40, where you guys would be firing into.
I understand.
Believe me, the military alone would be capped down the area, so we spot this ORV open.
I understand, and we're going there as a
But
customer.
you just stated that there would be no
I understand.
ORV issues. in the
We're not gonna
military.
impact it any more than it's already impacted.
Well, you would be, because you won't be firing at the same time as the military would be firing, so there will be more impact.
Well,
Definitely.
well,
Every
just
time
a
you're
couple-
out there, the
I
range is shut
understand.
down.
Yep, then in that case,
It's about 3 or 4 days a year.
yep.
Yep. That's
So,
Could I add to the question to that? So what is the timeframe that it does take to test? How long does it take? Is it a one-day process? What is that?
Probably 1 or 2 days for a lot.
yep, throughout the year, yeah.
We expect probably 3 lots a year.
And certainly, if that's a concern as a customer with Camp Grayling, that we can work with them so that we are shooting when they're shooting, right? So we're already going out there when the range is. I have relationships, right?
How are you guys gonna address the fact that you're a private contractor shooting on Camp Grayling?
You should know better too.
It's a training facility and you're a private contractor. The fear in this town is that the private contractor brings more private contractors. The industrial militarization, that's what you're talking about, and that's the fear in this group.
Okay, how do we address it? The base has a MOA, an agreement that they sign with private companies to do testing or training on the facility, right? Right, I know they've done everything from UAVs, of corporations that are testing small UAVs, medium, large. I know there's been weapons testing done by different companies.
UAV, we don't know what that is.
A unmanned aerial vehicle, like a drone. Drones that are flying around. So there are agreements with the base. The only thing that we are looking to test is the products that we are directed by our customer to test.
And specifically, this is the AT-4,
It's
which
the
is a
shoulder fire
large
munition.
which is something that's used on Camp Grayling with some regularity already. Pardon me?
Everything, every customer you get, say you want to build some other kind of what they were intending to shoot.
So we're only selling,
Anytime you want to.
no, so we're only selling to the US Army. Anything that we're testing for the US Army and the Marine Corps. And we have clear line of sight in terms of what those program requirements are.
Okay, so to ask a question, you take hands, So,
Brad.
Brad, you can go ahead and select the hand that you'd like to ask next.
Thank you, Bill Mahaffey. Hey, real quick, circling back, there seems to be a lot of distrust here, right? We're trying to build trust, make it a win-win. I just did a quick search for Saab assembler pay on Google, and the only thing that actually comes up is directly from your website, and the entry-level pay rate states up to $23 an hour on your website. Where is the $25 to $30 an hour that you're telling us about here listed anywhere in writing on your website?
I was just going from memory, so I was a couple bucks out.
Apparently.
If it's 15 to 20, why would you pay much more than that?
Can you show me?
Yep.
This is to the entire group. Heather Hutton, I'm a resident here. I have concerns with any corporation that comes in and you have the amount of land you need now. With a corporation this size, I think we should be thinking of now and future, because it seems to me, at least in this, that you have enough land for your current scope of a project with this much cost to put it in. I've come from background of hospital building, that you're always thinking of future growth, future impact, and it seems to me that this is a rather landlocked situation. So I'm just asking to always think in your mind, what could be next in the future and where would expansion go? And is it feasible or not feasible? So just a comment.
That's a good question, I can speak to that if you like. So if you go, Matt, can you go back to the site layout slide? Probably do it better than I can, but, so, yeah. So right here, the buildings we have planned, that you see in red, are to address the business that we know that we have today. We can double our capacity within that existing footprint by adding a second shift. So there will be no need to double that capacity, there will be no need to add additional buildings or land. We have footprints here for, this is the max we need to or be able to grow on this site with these 3 extra buildings that you don't see in red, which is, at this stage, I'm not sure what we use as a guideline to drive that, but it's way more than the business that we see coming in. So there's enough capacity built into that existing plan to not need any additional. Is that close?
According to your page there, it said that you hired 10 people, 4 of which are local, 1 is actually Crawford County graduate. Of the 70 possible hirees, how many are going to be Crawford Saab graduates? How many are going to be residents of Crawford County?
As many as possible.
Give me a number, give me an idea.
We'd like all 70 people to be here. No, I mean, this is gonna be where we start. This is where we
Well, we're looking at 4 Crawford County residents is how I'm taking local, 6 not. So do I base the numbers off that? I'm trying to figure this out.
I guess, and what do we define as local, right? I mean, I think in our mind, it's anybody within, what, a 45-minute drive?
See, and I figured Crawford County.
Okay, so.
That's what I'm looking for, our residents, our children.
That slide? That, yeah, there you go. So 4 local, 3 1 from here coming back, and 2 are coming here from out of state. So this is where we want to build our employee base, is the bottom line. And this is where we found the talent to a large degree, right? But you've got to pull the talent from where you can get it. So 70 jobs, that we've been saying, we think is really the floor. It's a matter of how much can the community support? I think it can support a lot of it.
So out of those 10 employees that you have hired now with no plan, what is their job description right now, and what kind of skill sets did they need to do the job that they're doing right now?
So
That's part 1 of my question. Part 2 of my question was, And it might be listed somewhere, maybe on your webpage, I still haven't found the economic, or the environmental studies, I'm still looking. But, so where does the grant money come from? Is there grant money in this project? And where does it come from? And does this board, stand to benefit from any grant money? And the third question is, if you don't require water, why aren't you in the desert? Why are we in beautiful, pristine Crawford County? Those are my three questions.
All right, so the first one, if I'm not gonna get them all right, but I'll walk them through. So, Director of Manufacturing. So that person that's already hired, he has about 14 years of experience manufacturing munitions, and he's got a 30-year Air Force career handling munitions behind him. So that
So
was
he's
his,
working somewhere else right now?
so he is remote and he is moving here.
Okay.
So he's
From Minnesota.
From Minnesota.
I'm talking about the people who are here in Crawford County right now that you said were working here in Crawford
Okay,
County.
so Carrie, Director of Facilities.
Joe's cousin?
Is there a facility?
So I'm from Huron County. My title is managing the supply chain. But I did grow up here also on the Saab River. My father has a home in Levels, and he also has a house on Shoepack Lake there. So I understand everybody's concern. I love to hunt and I love to fish. My goal is to relocate back up here. I will be up here at least 3 days a week. And, you know, my family would come as
So I
well.
guess what I'm asking is, what are you doing now? There's no plan.
So, but.
What is your job title
So,
right
but
now?
we are already producing one of the munitions, just not here. So as we bring people, so Kerry, as we're building the facility, he has a very clear job, build the facility. From a supply chain perspective, Chrissy's gonna have to learn our supply chain for the entirety of the product that we're already working on and the one that we're going to start working on very soon. So she has to learn all that and then get all that supply chain function here.
There's a learning curve, right? So we can't just open the building and hire everybody. We need to ramp up over time. And then we're starting with these key positions that are then gonna begin to hire and build organizations underneath them.
The third one, there's a man named Sean Morency. He graduated from here. He just finished, I believe, 21 years in the Navy. He's a weapons safety specialist, and he'll manage our quality system
So right now, they're just on payroll, kinda,
and but they're doing the job. They're just not doing it.
okay.
Sir, this guy has a
And
question.
then the second one was the grant money?
Yeah, I mean, we got a $3.5 million grant from the state as part of this.
And what was that
that's
grant for? What was
that's the
it
extent
called?
of it. I don't know what it's called. No. But it's part of the state standard incentivization.
MEDC.
Yeah.
This guy's got a question.
Sorry, Brad, real quick.
And-
I was just gonna, if you just look up Saab Environmental Grayling, Michigan, it'll pull it up on Google search. There's it.
And then you had
And
one
then
more question,
why did you
why not,
build in the
why not
desert?
in the desert? That's funny. So when we decided to do this, that we wanted to open a factory, a greenfield factory in the United States, it's October of 23. We started what we consider to be kind of a national search and competition in January. We identified multiple sites over 6 different states. And we were looking for access to a range. We could test our weapons before we provide them to the U.S., to the government. We were looking for appropriately sized land to build on, and we were looking for a community with a cultural fit. So fast forward through spring of 2024, we came down to 3 finalists and ended up selecting Michigan based on, and Grayling based on those requirements. So there's nothing that pointed us in the desert. Yeah, cultural.
Who'd you talk to get the range okay?
Pardon me?
Who'd you talk to get the range okay, so you can use it? Who told you could use the range fan?
The state gave them $3.5 million to help them out.
So
where do you think the commission came from?
So the cultural fit piece is we're a company that's headquartered in Syracuse.
Did the military tell you you could use the range or?
We are
We're-
working with,
we're
these
headquartered in
questions
Syracuse,
with
New York.
hands up, so if you don't have a question, or if you do, put your hand up and then Brad will call on you.
We have a kind of a northern orientation as a business. We have a Swedish parent. So we have a natural kind of cultural affinity between our Swedish parent and Michigan as compared to Mississippi, which was one of the other finalists. So that's what I mean when I say cultural fit.
Again, sir, who said you could use the ranges? Who gave you the authority?
Mr. You, in the white flannel, you had your hand up a long time.
I just have one question going back to the assembler's qualifications. Okay. I believe that I'm concerned about your ability to find qualified assemblers within the local community based on what I read on the website a long time back, which indicated that you wanted several years of experience in weapons assembly. And I can't remember all the qualifications, but they're listed under the assembler's qualifications.
Okay.
You just said that all they need is a clean record and an ATF scan.
Okay.
If you're unable to find qualified assemblers that meet your parameters, then are you bringing people in from another area, or you're just trying to train up the ones?
I think we lean, so there's two parts to this. The first one is the assemblers, think of it like entry level, like I've never had a job before, to like I've been an assembler for 10 years.
Right.
So there's a little bit of gradient there on that, right? So we're not gonna hire a person at like a level 3, level 4 assembler that's never turned a wrench on one of these before.
So typically, to begin with, they wouldn't be local in all probability, unless you find them through the military.
So I think that if you're asking for me to look in the crystal ball, I think a very high number of them are the entry level. And I think we probably need to look, so we expand the bubble beyond Grayling, the town of, up to 45 minutes to an hour away, and we find people who have assembly experience. And that's what you,
I think part of this is the training program and part of this is the training program we put together.
Yeah, and we're the training program, like, when I look at the hiring, when I say October, November, December hiring for a January, February, March operational timeline, that means we're hiring and training and prepping, and some of that training, they may have to go other places to get trained. So one of the products is built in Sweden right now, and another product is built somewhere else in the US.
And as part of our diligence, as we were kind of searching the country for a location, we did what we called a heat map study to look at labor bases in the various areas that we were looking at. So we've done our diligence in terms of what we think is available based on the employment and labor data that's out there for this greater region.
I appreciate that, but from the perspective of Grayling Township property, what you're doing is you're looking at a radius beyond Grayling Township property. So many of the people may not live in Grayling that work in the facility, although they may provide some economic impact by their being here. And I'm not trying to judge one way or the other, I'm just trying to be clear on that.
Yeah, that's not inaccurate.
Thank you.
I don't think it hasn't fallen, we realize that Grayling's the seat of the county, right? And it's a hub for a lot of different things, right? And it's easy when everybody may say Grayling, but it really means a lot of things, right? Mr. Wakely doesn't live in Grayling, right? But he claims Grayling, right? And there's a lot of people that will claim Grayling, but they don't necessarily live there, right? So the Grayling as a whole, and even beyond, is where we're trying to pull from.
Okay. Purple sweater.
My name is Nadine Fortier. I'm from Grayling. A lot of this is community oriented, as I see. My question is, you got a tax grant for $4.5 million, right? What else besides the jobs are you going to bring to this community? What are you offering these people, except for the planet? You're not going to pay tax, school tax, local tax, any taxes. You're getting a free ride for so many years because you are from another country. So the tax base falls on these citizens as you do what you do here. So what are you going to offer besides those few jobs?
Brand new hospital.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, I mean, I need to look at the details. I can't believe we're not gonna be paying any tax locally. I don't think that, I think this was part of the, no, we're headquartered in Syracuse. We're incorporated in the United States. We have a Swedish parent, we're an incorporated business in the United States. So we got the same kind of incentive package that any other US company would get coming here. And if you look at Saab's track record of establishing new facilities in the United States, as our business has grown from its base in Syracuse, and this would be, if we're successful here, this would be our 10th. We select places where we can make a difference as a corporate local partner. Our last plant that we built was in West Lafayette, Indiana, and we're an instrumental part of that town in terms of supporting engagement with the college, supporting nonprofits, fundraising events, and we're already trying to get involved here a little bit. This is when I say cultural fit. We felt like this is a community where we can make a difference and make a positive impact, and that's one of the reasons we selected.
Our plant out there pays millions of dollars a year. We used to pay $2 million a year 20 years ago. They had to sue the city of Grayling for $10 million.
We're calling on people with raising hands.
So I have a couple questions, should go pretty easy. And then a statement to the board. Do you, as Saab representatives, regret the headline that Saab is announcing their new facility in Grayling when it has not been approved by this board? Do you regret that headline saying you're opening a facility in Grayling without this board's approval?
We've been clear through this process that we're supporting this process, and that was all conditional.
That is on your website that says Saab is opening their facility in
I think
Grayling.
we're a little bit as frustrated as some of you all that we got caught up in a process that didn't go as clean as like maybe we would have liked it.
So
right?
my question is, do you regret that being out?
No, we're proud to be here.
Okay.
We're not here yet.
That says a lot. That says a whole lot.
I'm here.
Board, based on the information at Kirtland, there was a facility and the question was asked, why do you need so many acres when you're only using X amount? We came back today, 3, maybe 4 weeks later, and we've moved that plan because we didn't know. I would urge you to vote no until we know. That's it.
I got a couple of questions from your presentation. You said that Grayling's not the customer of the U.S. government. I get that. I'm a retired Army, so I get that. You also said that all the raw material is going to be shipped in via I-75 and all the products shipped out. And I understand you need access to the range to test lots. I get that. But downstate, there are any number of large industrial complexes that have been reduced to concrete slabs. A picture online the other day, the Buick plant down in Flint. Huge. You have a huge manufacturing legacy down there, if you will. People that have been involved in manufacturing all kinds of things for decades. Why here? You could, if you're only going to fire a few rounds a year up here, you could more easily truck those up here. I'm assuming that all your materials are going to come from downstate someplace because nobody up here makes the kind of chemicals, products and that you're going to use for these weapons. So you're trucking the stuff up here to assemble it, to truck it back downstate, ship it to the customer. And the only reason I see that you're here really is because of the range. And a lot of these people here see you as just like the toehold. We've seen the DNR do things, the state do things, our governor do things. People get a toehold up here and they say, okay, well, we already have one plant up here, what's wrong with another one? Next thing you know, our governor is selling another 400 acres to somebody, and we don't want it. So I'm just saying, why not downstate? Why not down there where there's infrastructure, where you're closer to your supplies, where there's a manufacturing,
Employees.
right?
So we knew, I mean, one piece of it is, and Brian might have remembered this, but we knew we needed a fairly large chunk of land, right, so 380 acres. We didn't see that as feasible in Detroit, or Flint, or, we didn't see anything available in that regard, in that size, that didn't have to be rehab.
Well, you're gonna start from scratch here, so down there, at least you have some infrastructure, like, I'm sure that Buick plant, I saw a picture, it's probably well over 300 acres, or 400 acres.
Yeah, but you need to demo that plant.
It's already down, it's already down.
Okay.
Same way in Lansing.
We didn't see it as viable. That's the case.
I'm just saying.
But I think, to be honest, when I came on board at Saab, I was given so we're down to 2 states at that point. One state in Michigan. And there was I think I had 3 slides of properties in Michigan that were essentially available. And when we started looking at the volume of them, distances that you could get standoff from roadways and other people's property, the other 2 properties that I saw, it was like small squares, like chunks, that wouldn't allow us to have one big open wide
Continuous.
It has to be continuous, and it has to be so you can get the standoff, right?
I understand the safety fan and all that stuff,
So,
the bunkers.
and that's now,
But,
but I wasn't the person researching the land, but we.
No, I
asked
understand
what's
it, I don't think any of you made that decision, I know Saab probably did, our governor probably helped, and I know that a large part of your PR problem is because, our governor likes to get out in front of these things, and say, well, she's a great economic, she's been a great economic, developer or whatever for the state of Michigan, and bringing people in here, but, you have to understand, that land was bought with taxpayer dollars, Pittman Robertson funds, and that, the people own that land, and we've had like no say in this. We have boards, no offense to the board, but they're unelected. They don't answer to these people. They can do whatever they want here tonight, and we can't vote them out, we can't do anything, because they're not elected. And everybody here, I think, is frustrated by that process. I know it's not your process, but, I think that you should all just kind of slow it down a little bit. Make sure that if the plant is built, that the majority of the people here in this county and the surrounding areas agree that it's a good thing. So, anyway, there you go.
Thank you. So we've got a couple folks in the back that have been pretty patient. Ma'am, yeah.
I have a 2-part question for Saab. The first part of that is, what is Saab's risk management plan in the event of a catastrophe? And the second part of that question is, has there been any research as to how much that catastrophe would cost the company?
About that disaster plan.
Okay.
Spoke about.
So the first part, the disaster plan, before we can go operational, we have to brief both DCMA, so Defense Contract Management Agency, and the ATF. And they have to be satisfied that the plan in place is, number 1, can mitigate, and number 2, can essentially, as we move through that process, move toward a cleanup, whatever that would look like. But we don't have, right now, what you see on the slide, that is based on explosive arcs and the risk of things getting thrown out of an incident. Beyond that, we still have all that work to do ahead of us, as far as to answer your question. Now, one caveat with our parent company in Sweden that's producing one of the munitions right now, they already have a very mature plan that they execute on their facility in Sweden, subject to Swedish law, subject to Swedish rules. We would have to still take that entire plan and still get it through DCMA and the ATF.
And update it based on more stringent requirements.
If it's a requirement, then.
The concrete have a rubber membrane underneath it, because concrete's gonna crack.
Yeah, it has to. Because we can't, but when you look at for sure well, actually, yes, it will, because in the ammunition magazines, if we don't put a membrane on the bottom and we don't put a membrane over the top, you're gonna get moisture seepage, and then it's gonna mess up the product. So, and then in the
process doesn't use any water, but, you're gonna have to apply cleanup, which is probably gonna require water.
What's going down your janitor's
When you
sink?
mop the floors, what do you do to the water?
Sure, yeah.
What's going down the janitor's sink, I think is the question.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, so
you're
it's-
gonna have plant cleanup, that you're gonna have to clean up your plant, keep it clean. That water and,
And that would be standard janitorial water. The raw material products that come in, they come in sealed.
seal.
We're not pouring, I can understand, it's hard for me to explain because I've been looking at these products for so long and because I was a user of these products for almost 30 years. Like just shoot, right? The sealed warheads, they come in, unless you actually try to hammer them apart, no part of it's coming out. The rocket motors that are used, it's a solid state fuel rocket motor. It's not gonna come apart. So what you're. Or leak, or it's not like nitroglycerin that might, the seal might crack and then drip, right? So what you'll end up with in the building is a standard janitorial cleanup, just mop buckets, et cetera. And as part of any assembly operation, there also has to be a cleanup plan in the event of something that, say a round comes in, say a round's fouled. A rocket motor comes in and it's got a crack in it and who knows why. It can't be used for the product. It needs to be disposed of properly. So, yes, there will be a plan for all that as well.
They're gonna be using any kind of nuclear energy or anything in there?
No.
Nuclear warheads or anything?
No, we have, the only thing, when you say nuclear.
I think your shoulder's starting to hurt.
Brad, give me one. Are you guys gonna be hooked to the city drain, or are you gonna have?
This guy has a question, he's asking about.
Everybody, I want everybody to be aware that Grayling Township did not sign off on the tax breaks.
I was gonna say, I see 15.
We did not sign off
15
on the
years
tax
tax
breaks.
break.
But they still got it anyway?
No, not Grayling Township.
It's the gentleman in the back of the glasses.
Yeah, this is just to make a statement to the board. I don't envy your position. You guys are charged with the task, elected or otherwise, of like curating the direction of our community. Okay? We're talking about industry and jobs that are coming into this community, and yes, we do need industry, we do need jobs, right? But what's the net end of the job? I mean, are these people helping people long-term? No, they're not. They're killing people long-term and short-term. That's what they do. This is not like a munitions company that builds bullets for deer rifles so we can all get cheap bullets and go shoot deer in our beautiful area that we live. This is a company that's coming to our small community. Granted, we do have a military base here, and militaries do what militaries do, right? But what we're doing here is we're creating a death factory in Crawford County that's gonna ship it out to the rest of the world and kill people that we don't know. I mean, there's more stuff here to think about. And I just want everybody to think about that, just for a moment. Just think about what this product does. Does it help people out in that hole, or does it not? It doesn't. I don't think it should be here.
So, one of the reasons why the United States Army asked us to put the
I
RFP
understand
out.
that's what the Army does.
Yeah, I know, they
I'm
put
aware.
they put an RFP out for this particular round. It was supposed to, they were looking for a shoulder-fired rocket that was gonna answer, there's 3 or 4 out there now, and this one's gonna do all 3 or 4, right? Now, right now, the Army's running around with these 3 or 4, and in the moment, they have to decide which one they're gonna shoot, right? Is it for light armor? Is it for a bunker? Are they in a trench, right? If they fire from a trench and they use the wrong one, they're liable to kill themselves and someone else, right? This is supposed to solve that, make that decision-making process easier and safer for our brothers and sisters that are at war.
I'm just curious, what is the longevity of your company in one place?
So we've been incorporated since 1937.
Okay.
Saab was founded in 1937. Since then, the company has acquired older businesses. So one of the products that David was just talking about is called the AT4. That was created by a company called Bofors. Bofors traces its lineage all the way back to the mid-1600s. It was founded by Alfred Nobel, the same person that's behind the Nobel Prize. And we've been on the same site in a small town in Sweden called Karlskoga since the mid 1600s. And of course, the factory's been updated over time.
Sure.
But that's our legacy going back that far. In the U.S., we've been operating here in the U.S. since selling product in the U.S. since the 80s. We incorporated about 5 years ago. We're headquartered in Syracuse.
So what are you hoping the longevity of this Grayling plant is going to be?
There's no, we don't
You
see
don't
an
have a
end.
projection?
No, we don't see an end to
Okay,
it. I mean,
great.
this is a strategic.
I'm just asking because when Weyerhaeuser came in the early 80s, I was a member of the Weyerhaeuser family for 33 years. When they first came in, everybody said they were a 5-year company. Here we are 40 plus years later, and Weyerhaeuser still employs several Crawford County people.
Yep, no, that's our vision, is to be here for as long as we can.
Thank you.
And operate, yep.
So I did go on MLive, and it does say we did get the 15-year tax break. So where does that come from if it didn't come from the township?
Yeah, must be state.
It came from- You don't know though? I mean, that's curious to me.
We can get you the details on that. Frankly, the incentives were the least important part of this activity.
Well, I mean, you're going to use our fire, and you're going to use.
And we're gonna pay for it.
Through taxes?
Through
township tax. Everything
Where'd you get the permission to use,
Manufacturing.
what body of government did you get the permission to use range 40?
I'm sorry.
How come you guys are refusing to answer this question? Who gave you permission to use
Because we're
range
not
40? I've been asking this question a couple times, so you look at me and you're not answering it. Who gave you permission to answer range, to use range 40 as a body of government?
Let's go to John over here first.
I want to back up a little bit. We're talking about eligibility of employment. And my question, I want to throw this out there. Is the manufacturing experience, that does not have to be in the arms?
No.
No.
In just some kind of manufacturing
pilots
or
only.
machining or knowledge of workings of things?
Yep.
Is what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
The other thing I wanted to ask you is, since you are a Swedish-based company, in the event that an Axis versus evil, to quote the World War II allies versus a bunch of schmucks situation that we had with World War II between the world and Hitler, if something like that happens internationally, how is this going to affect what's going on here? You gotta remember, that's an international question.
yeah, so I should have pointed this out. So we are incorporated in the United States. We have what's called an SSA, which is Special Security Agreement with DoD to service the Defense Department with product. That requires us to have an arm's length relationship with our parent company. We have an independent U.S. board, so we operate entirely independently as a U.S. company with our parent having limited visibility into what we do. They see our finances. They don't see our technology. They're not privy to how we operate with our customers.
So it'd be more or less like brothers on opposite sides of the Civil War. Sorry, Bill, I gotta shoot you.
Okay, let's
Sir,
we've
okay.
been here almost 2 hours, we have 5 more minutes, so at 7:15 we'll begin
I've been
with
up since
questions. So
4:30.
any other
I was
questions will
machines.
be ended at 7:15.
So you had a question about the camp. Can you repeat the question? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, who gave you guys permission that you could use range 40? Was it the military? You're a private company and it's.
Yeah, it was Camp Grayling.
It was who?
Camp Grayling.
Can you say specifically who?
I
Was it
don't
Myers?
know, I
Colonel
wasn't a
Myers?
specific person.
Well, right now, we're in talk with Lieutenant Colonel Quinn Rogers, and we're working through the agreements on what it takes.
So that hasn't been stoned yet?
No.
That's not, no. We've put forth our end of the agreement, if you will, and they're gonna read the contract, and, yeah, we're going through that right now.
It's an MOU that we need to sign and.
I think it's gonna be impossible.
I'm sorry.
I think it's gonna be impossible to be able to test on range 40. I mean, there's laws that prohibit it. A private company from using anything.
They're doing work for the government company.
Real quick, how many, so this potential facility, how many products are you gonna build?
2.
2 products. The one is the, what is it, AT4, and I remember from the meeting in Kirtland, that's a 40-year-old product. Ish.
Yeah, just about, yeah. And
Okay.
we've continued, we've upgraded it over time.
Your other
and
product
modernized it.
is how old?
Well, I mean, it's
Something
new now. I mean,
5
it's
years,
newish, yeah.
it's a new product?
Yeah, we developed it maybe 10 years ago with Boeing.
Okay, so that's leading into my question. Is this facility that you wanna build here, could it be another facility's disaster plan? Say your Lafayette plant gets wiped off the map by a tornado, because they happen in Indiana. Is all of that, or some other crazy thing that Saab builds, is this gonna be the disaster plan?
No, this is our only proposed munitions plant in the US. It's our only one. So, I mean, if it's gonna be a disaster, opportunity for West Lafayette, then we'd be building, fuselages there, right? That's what we do in West Lafayette. So it's not backing anybody else up, any other sites in the US, or Sweden for that matter.
So you don't have a disaster, and you won't have a disaster relief plan for this, if this is the only munitions plant in the entire United States?
Of course we will. Yeah. We just talked about that disaster relief plan.
You have two hands up.
I just want to know from the board what time frame they're going to give to make their decision, and how will it be announced?
That was for the board, I think.
It is.
What's the time period?
When will you guys vote, is the question.
When and how will it be announced?
I plan on making a motion tonight, and the board can choose to vote for or against, or have a counter motion.
Great, thank you.
We have one more minute here.
Okay.
There's one more hand.
How much money, tax revenue do you figure you'll bring Crawford County per year, on a rough guess?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. That's something we can look into. Yeah, I don't know.
Where did you hear that?
What's that?
I was wondering if the board.
Yeah, I don't, we haven't done that.
They don't know how much tax.
We haven't done that calculation. No, we haven't.
Based on the assessed value,
Which is?
we don't know till the plant's built. We
Well, you
assess.
saw, so $75 million to build the structure.
It's not based on the cost to build the structure, it's based on the assessed value.
So like when they built Araco, $500 million, but that only came in at $125 million. It's not ever valued at what the cost of the.
Yeah, that's it.
Kind of important for business to know, like, when they're figuring profit margins and cost of operations, you'd think that Saab would already know that, wouldn't they?
Not there yet.
They know that.
You didn't know you had a tax credit.
Okay, it's 7:15, thank you so much, everybody, for the Saab group, for accounting, answering the questions. I hope that this was helpful.
Quiet!
And asking the questions that you had. Like, I don't remember who said that about Facebook, there is a lot of rumor on Facebook, there's a lot of people talking on Facebook, and it isn't all true. Some of it could be, and some of it is not. So having your direct line right to Saab and asking those questions, I think is very valuable. And I hope that you've got your questions asked, and that you feel better or feel whatever in this process. It was important that you guys did get time to be able to ask questions. And in the two other presentations at Kirtland, maybe your questions didn't get asked, hopefully it did tonight. So I appreciate all of that.
Show of hands if you're still a no.
Hired you guys to vote accordingly.
Is there gonna be comment towards the board before you vote, or no?
That was it.
Comments or questions, that's it?
I think we had, voice comment today, so I don't think we're gonna do another comment. Okay, so the next part is moving forward after Saab has done the presentation, we've had public comment twice. Paul, I think you said that you wanted to make a motion.
Well, I do, but I think some discussion is probably in order first. It goes along with the reason for the motion, but I think it's important for members of the public to hear this from the board, and so I'll just offer my part of it. I'm Colin Hunter, I'm a longtime resident, born and raised in Grayling. I will stay here if I can my entire entire life, raising my children here. I'm raising them to be fifth-generation Crawford County residents. I live on the river, I care about the river. I also care about making sure that I can have the opportunity to hopefully positively affect this community to bring jobs here. I want my daughter and my son to be able to move back here. So I recognize, and we've talked about that at other board meetings, and I want to make sure and repeat it here. We walk a fine line between trying to invite business and making sure, as we're supposed to under our MOU, make sure that we believe as board members that it's a good fit. I've been a board member on this board for several years. I've never been paid a cent. I've never been offered a cent. I've never been offered a bribe. If I would have been offered one, I would have rejected it immediately, and I would have reported it to the rest of the board. I don't get anything out of this board. I'm a volunteer. What I hope to get out of it is an impact on my community, and I think I can speak for the rest of the board in saying that. We're here volunteering our time, and we've been doing so on this particular project for probably close to 50 or more hours, is my offhand guess. After every meeting, I collect my notes, and I issue the minutes because I'm the secretary. I do that at no cost, and I do that when I'm busy doing all of my other things that I enjoy doing in my life. So, to anyone that has a question about what the board gets out of this, we get zero. We get to help the community by trying to offer our views about what we think is a good fit and what we think isn't. You are probably going to hear disagreements amongst the board about whether or not we think it's a good fit or we think it's a bad fit. We certainly heard tonight differences of opinion between people I respect. Many of the people who have spoken on both ends of the aisle, I know and respect personally. So it's frustrating to me when I know that to be the case, I invest my time that people have wild conspiracy theories about what's happened with this group. It's an accurate statement to suggest that we're unelected. I'm an elected official, but this isn't an elected position. People are elected in this position. We just had a new election, but it's by way of volunteering to be elected on an advisory board. Once and if we make a vote, if anything goes past this group, then everything goes to the Grayling Township Board. The Grayling Township Board is a public body. If that happens, everything goes to the DNR, which is a public body. The design of it, want to agree or not, was for that purpose. So I don't view it as a negative to say, and a lot of people have mentioned negativity, to say that this group is unelected. That does not mean we're not accountable, because everyone in this board, everyone on this board has connections to the community. That's why they were approached to be on it. They're leaders in this community, and they're people that care about this community. So you can disagree with me, or you can disagree with them, but I just ask that you keep respect and courtesy in your minds, because we're here volunteering our time. Nobody else is doing that, but we are. Outside of that, I maintain, as I have maintained, that this process of this group meeting, it's not been how I would want it. I am a judge. Everything in my professional life is about process. It's about one side saying what they're going to say, the other side saying what they say, and then us being able to decide. I haven't felt through this process that I've been able to get the information. The beginning of this process, I didn't know who the company was. Today's date, and I get Saab is offering to build a $75 million manufacturing company here. They're going to have to continually update their business plans and their site plans. I've just heard now that Saab has a different site plan than I've ever seen before. I didn't get any updated site plan. That's one of the things that I think is important for us to know about before we vote to approve a project of this nature. I've said before at other meetings that I think that the level of risk that goes with potential improvements, that goes with potential jobs, potential buildings of different businesses, has to affect the way we view it. The process is the same, but when the level of risk is more, we have to examine it more closely. When I examine it more closely, the concerns that I have haven't gone away. And I don't 100% blame Saab on that. As I've said before, I had a huge issue with the way the DNR treated this process. Our MOU, which is a contract that was signed between the DNR and the board. I had a problem with that. This isn't about that any longer, because the DNR apparently has agreed to allow us to perform our function. But I have problems with things that are in this economic review that I've brought up before, but I think are necessary to bring up again. These are my concerns. If other people don't have those concerns, that's fine, but I will not voice my concerns. The plan is to have two different types of explosive ordnance developed. This is from the white paper of Dr. Bonnie Packard. One of the ordinances would have greater than or around 12 pounds of igniter, around 4 pounds of primary explosive, 36,000 pounds of rocket propellant, 6,500 pounds of secondary explosive, that's a ground launched small diameter bomb. The other, the AT-4, would have less than 200 pounds of propellant igniter, less than 130 pounds of boosters, 2 pounds of propellant, less than 1 pound of primary explosive, and 7,000 pounds of secondary explosive. The site that's been chosen is within our MOU, and again, that's not necessarily the fault of Saab, but it's where it was chosen. And what we have next to that is a half a mile away is Schellenbarger Lake. This was again from the report that was prepared by AECOM, which is apparently hired by Grayling Township, but it's been provided to the board. It's also got clear imprints of hands of Saab on it, and I'll get to what I mean by that. It's within 0.5 miles, a half a mile of Schellenbarger Lake. There are, per that report, in Gosling-Subak's testing, quaternary soils, which are moderate to high hydraulic permeability. There's a water table that's anywhere between 13.5 to 45 feet below the ground, depending on the area that's been tested and bored. Saab was quoted in the environmental review by AECOM as indicating that it recognizes the profound environmental impact that its operations have. And the quote that I have repeated and took issue with, not just today, but last meeting and 2 meetings ago, one resulted in an amendment of this, but none of that language has been taken out, was at page 13 of this this environmental review. And the words that were chosen by Saab and have not been amended so far is if there are issues, they're talking about in there, and I'll just read from it rather than trying to summarize. This is the updated or amended environmental stewardship summary. Again, I'm looking at page 13 of that. Environmental health and safety policy statement 7.2. Through well-structured environmental work practices and continuous improvements, the environmental impacts from plants, products, and services shall be minimized down as far as technically possible and economically reasonable. So from an environmental health and safety policy standpoint, because they recognize that there is a profound impact, their words in this environmental review, if there's a problem from environmental health and safety, they will, as far as technically possible and economically reasonable, assist and fix. That sounds to me not very convincing. It's not language that convinces me of a lack of risk, even though I acknowledge that Saab has made its commitment and it's pledged that there's not going to be issues. I find it hard to believe and am not convinced that when you're dealing with those thousands of pounds of explosives, that if there were a worst case scenario with groundwater 13 feet away that leads directly into Schellenbarger Lake, which goes directly into the main branch of the Saab, that there's no potential problem. And so as a steward of the land, when I view my role as a board, and other board members might see it totally differently, and that's fine. But the way I view my role is, I ask myself the question is, has the environmental review that's been provided convinced me that there's no risk? And with those things, I am unconvinced. I'm also not convinced because this process has been so quickly pushed through. Again, I don't blame that on Saab. I blame that on the MEDC. I blame that on perhaps the governor's office. I don't know who the forces are. But I know that at routine times, this board has been asked to examine documents, information, the day before a meeting, and then asked to vote on it. Now we voted on it. Now we're being asked to vote on it again. And okay, I was even one that said it last meeting, we may have to continue these discussions. So be it. But I don't like the process that's been instituted. And I agree with some of the public public comments that process is important. That's why we have an MOU. So I don't believe that the AKT Peerless report removes concern. And so since I'm not convinced, my motion to the board, and I want to hear input from everyone else and have a vote, but my motion is deny the sale. I'm not convinced that there's a lack of risk. And if I'm not convinced, that's how I have to vote, because I view my role as being a steward of the property.
scenario. And I guess my comment was then and still is that there's nothing that we're gonna have that is gonna be zero, zero effect from any kind of disaster that may happen, whether you have one of the tankers that are crossing the bridge down there that's carrying thousands of gallons of gas that just happened to blow up. That'd be worst case scenario, but I don't think you could find any company that could ever say there will never ever be zero risk on anything. Whether it be the warehouser, what used to be Georgia Pacific, and also, there's always gonna be some risk. To me, you're never gonna have anything that has a fail-safe, for zero risk. Everything that I've read from the environmental impact statements is, even going through the worst case scenario, I guess I didn't see anything in there that would, make me, deter this company coming into the community.
Point of order, are you discussing something that hasn't been seconded? Has it been seconded?
We're not discussing that with the audience right now.
On the same note, I agree with Tom, the same point he had last time that I agreed with, there's nothing that's gonna have no risk, and the reason we have independent studies is because we're not experts in this, so I'm leaning on what the experts do say in the reports.
So I support Colin with that. I feel the same concerns, along with, as I look through our bylaws and I look through what this was built for, what the economic partnership goals were. The first part were to concentrate on retaining and expanding commerce and manufacturing that we have. Secondly, assist downtown development and its mission, and then create environmental clustering, including new businesses and industries. And with clustering, that is building businesses that fit with other businesses in the area. That's trying to maximize that MOU and put businesses that can be close together. We have a 68-acre worth of investment going in, and it's using 400 acres. We're running out of property within the MOU to be able to build more jobs and put a larger impact to our to another industry or something else that could be there. Outside of the environmental impacts, I just don't feel it's a great fit for us based on what our goals and objectives are. We're supposed to be working, and right through our strategic goals are coordinate and develop natural resources for leisure and recreation use. That's the very next thing under clustering businesses. This and expansion of workforce, education, and healthcare services, and provide economic education in the community and promote involvement by residents. So, this was brought up and built in 1997, I believe, is when this incepted for this partnership. Right in that area. And, back then there was a large group of people, there was a large funding source, there was activities, there was dinners and fundraising events, and we got a lot more public input to this board at that point. And right now, we're shrinking this down. I'm glad to see a lot of people here tonight expressing this, because we do need more voices in this board. It is a small group. And as we reach out, and as I reached out in my community, I'm seeing people do not want this. They don't think it's the right fit for us. So, outside the environmental concerns, those are some of my concerns also.
I guess I'll reiterate what I said last meeting. I tend to agree with Tom. I think there's nothing we can do that will eliminate all risk on any business we invite in. I agree with Emily that we had an independent study, a white paper done, that took the worst case scenario and felt the risk was nominal. And I think from an environmental standpoint, some of the businesses we've already approved present more of an environmental risks that are currently there than what Saab does. I understand the cluster argument, and I don't disagree with it, but I also like the diversity of it. We don't have a company like this and it's different. I think that also benefits the community and the diversity of our economic base.
So I'd like to go next. I do agree with Colin on the timelines of the MOU and the prep not something that I want to ever engage in again. The due diligence needs to be done, and we are doing it in an after-the-fact fashion, but we are still doing that. And the letters that were sent from the Grayling, County Board, that was very powerful and did stop the DNR process. And they will have a part two, if this moves forward with public comment. So there will be, I think there's a 30-day window for public comment also. As far as the MOU process, following it, we are doing that in a roundabout way, but it is still happening, and we're still doing this. That's why we're here today. As far as the risk, I have been reading all of the documents as well. I have reviewed Dr. Packer's document several times, highlighted a few things through our MOU, went through a lot of different clarifications so that I could make my decision today. Listening to everybody makes perfect sense for me to make my decision as well. I appreciate all of your comments. We've received a lot of people that may not be here today that are for this, and we received a lot of people who are here today and some that are not, but are against it. So I think it's important for that public comment talk.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
First things first, Grayling Township, Crawford County, we're an outdoorsman's paradise. I would never consider anything that would ever affect that. We need that. When I graduated high school in 1986, there was pretty much zero options for opportunities for me to get a job and be able to stay in my community. Luckily enough, I had a knack for being in construction, and I excelled at it, and very quickly, I was able to make a good life for my family here. And my wife, luckily, same thing. She ended up working for a company that started out with 4 people. She worked at 8 hours a week. We struggled for years, but we made it through because it's worth living here. It's worth the struggle. And protecting what we have has been in my family's realm since the day they got here. Mr. Todd Wakely has been here since 1879. Our families came here about the same time. We have a lot in common. Grayling has been the leader of taking care of whatever hurdles come before us. In the early 1900s, I have family pictures where there was not a tree in sight down at Stefan Bridge Road in the Saab River. Not a tree in sight. The local residents that lived here brought that back to life, brought the trout back to life, put trout farms in, and you know, what I'm about to tell you is that we've been battling with the state of Michigan and the DNR for as long as this community's been around. We started, local community members, residents up and down the river, put in trout ponds, raised the trout, reared the trout, let the trout out. The DNR recognized that. The DNR came up and they said, and they're like, hey, how are you doing this? Will you show us what you're doing? Because we can't figure it out, we're too dumb. And then they created the fish hatchery. In cooperation with, everybody's heard of Rue Babbitt, that's part of the Saab River. Everybody's heard of Rue Babbitt, with consolidation of Rue Babbitt. Once they got and working with the local citizens and local groups that were working up and down the river creating the trout ponds, and still, you know, putting trout in the river. And then the DNR got theirs up and running, and then they turned around, the state of Michigan comes around and tells all these people to stop with your trout farms. Now we have this created here now, we don't need you anymore. And the locals were like, no, I don't think you get to tell us that, we're gonna keep doing this. And then what did the DNR do? The DNR went around and started poisoning the trout farms that were raised up and down the Saab River to try to put a stop to it. There was a big fight about that. Every generation that's here has had that battle. Then Grayling came here, and they were a great partner in our community up till about 25 years ago.
And then the trout started being, and we started being on the radar as one of the best trout fisheries in the world. So we started getting inundated from a lot of people from outside coming in here, moving to our community, and we welcomed them. You know, whether they were here full-time or they were here coming to be guided and coming up and down the Saab River, so we had to do something about that. So Trout Unlimited was created on the banks of the Saab River. If you asked the gentleman that created, the two gentlemen that created Trout Unlimited, if you asked them who Lacey Stefan was, they would say they knew who Lacey Stefan was. It wasn't me. I wasn't born and raised at that time, but my grandfather was here, and I am the third. His name was Lacey Stefan. My grandfather, his brother, and my dad were in the room when Trout Unlimited was created. If you ask George Mason of the Mason Tract who Lacey Stefan was, he would know who that was. Every generation has faced the hurt. And so Trout Unlimited was created here to save the trout, manage the trout, and make sure they weren't overfished. And then the next thing that started happening is residents started being built up on the Saab. So again, local group of residents in Grayling Township and the surrounding, and up and down the river, started working together to say, hey, what would be a good way to manage development and housing up and down the Saab River to manage it so that it doesn't affect the Saab River? And that's when the Natural River District was created. It was created by residents that lived here. And now that has been adopted all over the nation for the natural rivers. Residents of this community have stepped up to the plate every time there's been an issue in our community. And I've heard the concerns expressed by some members of our community over potential threats to our environment and protecting the special character of our northern Michigan way of life. I understand these concerns. I live these concerns. My family's lived these concerns for my whole life. However, Saab's president in Grayling would pose next to no threat. We have hired AECom. As the township supervisor, I was tasked with recruiting an environmental review. I hired AECom. AECom is the top environmental review team in the company in the nation. They actually have a munitions division that specializes in that. And then, I don't know about that. I don't know what an environmental review entails. I didn't know what questions I should ask. So I recruited and asked Dr. Bonnie Packard. She's been 40 years as an environmental munitions in reviewing the DOD and keeping and making sure that they were not contaminating sites all throughout the nation. She has 40 years of experience. And I called her up and I asked her if she would be my consultant. So I knew not only what questions to ask, but how to ask them. And she volunteered her service. Like Colin said earlier, there's multiple people that have been involved in this that received zero. No incentives, no kickbacks, no promise of anything from anybody or anything else or from any corporation. And Dr. Bonnie Packard has volunteered. She was not on payroll. She was there for every phone call. If I send her an email, I get a phone call within 5 minutes. Mr. Jim Shiflett sent me some environmental concerns that he had earlier this week. I forwarded that email to Dr. Bonnie Packard. Dr. Bonnie Packard called me within 5 minutes. And she assured me and walked through me where his questions were answered in the white papers. We've asked about the ranges. The ranges are answered in the white papers. The range use in the documentation from 1997 and up to date of what's going on, that range is monitored. That range is monitored, the groundwater, there's groundwater wells all around there, and none of it has left the site. It does not leave the site. And this munitions, as far as the AT4, if you go to one of our local bars right here across from Goodale's, I can't remember the name of the, does anybody know the name of the bar, the brewery right across? Say it again? Rolling Oak. Rolling Oak. If you go in the Rolling Oak, right above the Rolling Oak, in that bar is an AT4 hanging from the ceiling. And it's been there forever. You know, like it or not, we're a military community. The military's been part of our communities for, well over 100 years. The military's not here because they started looking around for a place and said, hey, Grayling would be a great site. Once again, it was the Hansons, members of our community, Grayling members of our community that said, hey, we would like to donate 15,000 acres or whatever the number was to start with. 13,000 acres, Mike's telling me, I think, to us start out with. Once again, it was Grayling residents that did that, invited them here. We're a unique community. We always have been, for two reasons. One, we have the military people have been coming here and training so that when they go to war overseas, they come back alive. And what has that done? That has brought people to our community that would have never been here otherwise. And we have diverse members of our community that have moved back here after they've left. They leave from coming from training, they tell their wife and their family about it, then they start coming up here for vacation. And then the Saab River. The Saab River attracts people from all over the world. Last year when I was out fishing at Camp Chicago, a lot of you people will refer to it as a different kind of landing and don't know what Camp Chicago is. I've been here long enough, my family's been here long enough, we know what Camp Chicago is. Not many people do. I can guarantee you that every member of the anglers of the Saab, except for one, Josh Greenberg, knows where that site is and what that references. And there is hundreds of boats and canoers down there every day during the summer. So everybody knows that landing by a different name. Not the original name, by a different name. And so my point being is that Saab River brings people from all over the world, once again, to our community, and they end up moving here, they end up buying a residence here, and add to our culture, add to what we have here, add to somebody that we can ask questions to and rely on for information on what's going on in the rest of the world. And I was down there at Camp Chicago last year fishing, and I could see a monster trout down in the river, and I was watching this gentleman fish, and I'm trying to holler to him to tell him, you know, to fish there and catch that. And then I went for a long walk with my dogs. That's the reason I was there. I went for a long walk through the woods. When I go for a walk in the woods, I don't go to a public place. I don't go to Hanson Hills to the trail. I literally go for a walk in the woods because I don't need a trail. I don't need to follow the path that we've created for some tourists or somebody that's hasn't lived here their whole life and just comes up for 2 weeks at a time. So by the time I got back, them guys were loading up, so I went over there and started talking to them, and I finally, at that point, I figured out why they weren't knowing what I was talking about. They didn't speak English. They're from Japan. We have people coming here from the other side of the world. And again, we need some economic diversity here. When this MOU was created back in 1992, it was starting to be researched. It became into fruition in 1997, 2001. It started being what it is. You know, and we've done a great job of making sure that whatever comes here fits. There's a lot of times you don't even know what's out there. It's right along the I-75 corridor. We are where 127. The reason that everybody in this room is familiar with us and was familiar with us before they even bought a place up here or ever came here for the first time is because when you come from northern Michigan, from no matter where you're at, you either come up 127, I-75, maybe you used to come here by train. All that converges just below 4 miles. So hence why the MOU was created, the I-75, the industrial area was created. And then it was also created where the state has their own ambitions on what they consider a good thing, a bad thing. You know, the state of Michigan has their own goals. Well, the local residents, we have our own goals too, what we'd like to see here and not see here. So you know, it's a balance there. The DNR might say, yes, you know, this is a great thing, but we might not. You know, maybe we don't think it's a good thing, so either one can kill it. Either one can say no. There's been no company that has gone under this environmental scrutiny that I know of since I've been a part of this, and I've been paying attention to this, and since I've been on this board. Let me assure you, if the Saab project posted, if in my mind the Saab project proposed any kind of threat to Grayling's air, land, or water, or if it would endanger our quality of life and not enhance it, I would not vote yes for this. I would not. But we need to diversify. We've been, you know, I had one lady call me up and telling me that northern Michigan is no place for any kind of industry whatsoever. We are an outdoorsman's paradise and a spot to come for your vacation. And I agree with her. She's right. But then I also pointed out to her that, do you know that there's, you know, out in the 4 Mile Road corridor, I rattled off all the business for the community college, so on and so forth. She's like, no, I do not know where that's at. I did not know that was there. What are you talking about? So I explained it further to her. And she goes, I did not know that was there. So I think we've been doing a pretty good job of keeping that, you know, in its spot, out of sight, and not affecting the quality and the way of life that's all about what Grayling has to offer. And now we have an opportunity for a $1 billion multinational corporation to come to our community and add to that diversity. Brad spoke earlier, I was gonna ask Saab about that. Have they ever had an environmental issue at any of their plants? Have they ever had an explosion? Have they ever, you know, blown apart and had an environmental impact and then they, you know, ruined something at the location they were at? Their answer was no. So I am gonna ask Brad and the other gentleman with Saab one more time, so this can be clarified. Has Saab Incorporated, whether it's the 400-year-old company that's been around for 400 years or the Saab that was created in 1937, have they ever had an environmental catastrophe, even a drop of diesel fuel spilled all over the ground at any of your plants, locations, factories?
Yeah, and we touched on it earlier. As far back as we could search, and we looked 50 plus years, there's nothing in our records that indicate any environmental event at all. We also researched the web just to validate it and did our own digging, just to not take our company's word for it. So I invite anybody else to do the same research. We've got an absolutely pristine environmental impact record.
Thank you. And then I can just make one more statement. Everybody in this room doesn't know me. Everybody in this room doesn't know me. The people that do know me, there's people that I've known since the day I was born in this room. And every single one of them will testify to the fact that I have the highest level of integrity, and I pride myself on that. I never lie, I don't cheat, I don't steal, I don't do anything to anybody else to take advantage to make my life better, or my life, you know, more profitable. You know, I've been accused. I had one lady call me up and accuse me. She's like, oh, I looked and I saw that you have this beautiful house. You drive this beautiful F-150 pickup truck. What kind of kickbacks are you getting that allows you to do that? I built that house when I was 28 years old with my bare hands. I used logs off the property to build that house. I utilized every piece of it. I live in a log house. I do. It's because I bought them logs, I made them logs, and I created something out of Mother Nature. Every single piece of my house, my logs, my staircase, my trim around my windows, my cabinets, my countertops, everything was from wood off of my land that I developed and I put together. And I have been accused of that. I've been accused of that. My wife and I have worked our butts off our whole life. And I was able to take this position and sit down in this position because my wife is to a point where she is making a good amount of money. I had made a good amount of money as a builder. My bills were paid off. We owe nothing on, we do not owe any money on anything. So I was able to take this low-paying job because I wanted to be a part of helping my community and be a part of that group that did that. So, that being said, you know, I just, did everybody on the board have a chance to read all the emails that were sent out? And if you did, I would like to say that, you know, when you guys get a chance, I would like you to reference the one from Thomas Burr. That happens to be my favorite. Over.
You're done.
I am.
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
Mikey went like this to me like 20 minutes ago.
Still trying to remember the motions.
You seconded it, you better remember it.
Some discussion.
Yes.
I'll try to lower the average.
Thank you.
So, I'm here representing the school system, and so I'm in an extremely tough spot, because if you just asked me in a vacuum, building jobs, is that gonna be good for your school? It absolutely is great for our school. I agree with Colin with the process. The process still bothers me a lot. Not Saab's fault at all. But that doesn't sit well. And then hearing our community. I've also heard from our community positive things, right? I think you're more apt to come to a meeting like this if you have something negative to say, right? If you're against something. But I am hearing that, and that has an impact on what our community feels. So that's why I'm saying that I'm really struggling here, because part of my job is, hey, what does our community want? And so from a school standpoint, it would be a no-brainer in terms of, is this good for our school? But I hear that the fear of the unknown from people as well. I agree, I've read the reports. I don't think there's gonna be an environmental impact. But I can't say for certainty that there isn't going to be. But all the research that I've done, hearing, I don't believe there'd be an environmental impact, but I am hearing our community.
So representing City of Grayling, Eric Jasky, I agree with Tom, Paul, Emily here. We hired a company to give us their opinion on exactly what this company could potentially contaminate. And from those studies, I see zero. I mean, it says low to zero is what it says. I mean, judging by off what Saab has said, everything's gonna be contained, there's no drains on the floor, there's gonna be a membrane. I mean, the only potential that could happen is, from what I'm seeing, is some sort of large explosion, but even at that point, she said the amount of air quality that could come from that is very minimal. It would pretty much be all contained within that bunker. So I have more concerns about trucking companies coming in and draining, putting floor drains in, and then the diesel, gas, oil, everything else that they work on goes into that floor, goes through the drain and into the ground. And I even have more concerns about homes on the river and all the chemicals that they use in cleaning products now, and that stuff is just going into their sewer system, and that's just leaching into the river. So that's my opinion. And sorry, Colin. I know you're on the river, but I have more concerns with my opinion.
I think another thing to remember is, I think it speaks volumes to people that have had families, generations, all the way, never left here, but I also think it's important to remember, you don't choose where you grow up, you choose where you make your career, live the rest of your life. I'm one of those people, I didn't grow up here, but I moved up here and now my career's up here. So I think that's something important to remember too, and I think you and Michigan Works would see that too, bringing people to different areas for different jobs.
Absolutely, yes, and I would like to say I have only been on the job just short of 3 hours. I do have some notes. I have been involved in this plan back when it was Project Raven since February, so I'm not new to this. I have reviewed documents upon documents upon documents, so I feel I come to the table well educated, and I'm confident in my opinions that I will bring to you. So just to set the stage, for the last 7 years, I've professionally focused on becoming a workforce development expert. So as the CEO of Michigan Works Northeast Consortium, I can confidently say that Saab's development of 70+ jobs in this region will significantly enhance local employment opportunities, which directly impacts the quality of life for families in this region, which then will also lead to lasting economic impacts when you consider the secondary impacts of better paying jobs, enabling workers and their families to spend their dollars at local restaurants, shops, recreational activities. That has a continuation of a ripple effect throughout the community for years to come.
If I can make one more comment about it too, I think it's important, when you move up here and start your career, you're still a valued member of the community. Just because you haven't grown up here doesn't mean you're never part of the Grayling community, and I think it's important to recognize that.
No, I moved here from Florida 26 years ago. My wife's family's been here for generations and generations. She has her dad and 6 brothers that was in the military here. and on the base and everything else. And, I'm a business owner here in Grayling. I think that this would be a big project for Grayling. Been all good reports. I'm in the gas and oil industry, so I permanently cleaned it inside out. And look at it because of the risk. And I think that we're going to invest in this, I hope.
Motion was to terminate the sale. I'm gonna request a roll call vote. I think it's pretty clear, but I think it also should be documented that the issue that's been, in front of this board for so long, I think we should have a roll call vote.
Yes.
No.
No.
So the motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion to table this until the FOIA from the owners of Saab comes.
Second.
Do we know that they paid,
Yes, I did.
The document for the FOIA would be the 9,000 pages. Conversation, and you can see the issue they have with the Saab mission. My question would be to the board then, how does that help us in this factor with the environmental piece or in moving forward? How will those documents?
Is it consistent what they've been telling us? Is it inconsistent?
Yes,
Are there things we're not being told?
we push this on us really quick and let this take a decision. We can utilize how our plan, even in our plan, when it goes to 8.5 weeks, and wait for the environmental study, use our environmental study, because they have that, we have like our own, just like that, we have a mission for it. So I'd like to see the reasoning why, it's only this one also.
My comment would be, I don't, please don't say I'm not gonna run the state or emergency, or the DNR, and I gotta do it. That process is only what everybody else understands. I don't know that, my position would be that's not our role, that is the role of every tribe in Grayling Township, because that would be the next step. And also, I don't think we have the manpower to go through that. We value it.
We'll be taking somebody else's word.
That's my.
As far as the manpower, I think we would probably somehow do that, that would be a time process. Although I think the DOT is going on this, goal, if maybe by then it will come. What is the whole process? Are we subject to hold up of anyone needing a FOIA? Is that what we should do? Is there could be numerous FOIAs filed, and then we are subject to those questions.
If we decide that we want to be, in this FOIA, I would just say it's not from anyone, it's from Angels of the Saab, because it's dedicated to Slide to the River. They were identified that they had the documents, and now they're just not supplying them. That changes the scope of the concern for me. If we have it, or if we don't.
Also, probably expedite the process of getting them, if that's the normalized process. And if there's a reason that they're withholding them at this point, there's no reason they haven't got them 90 days now, 30 days past when they're supposed to be here. They should be able to review them and came to this public hearing with their, as if they had an issue that got them to us, along with us to be able to look at this time. So, I'd rather wait for that.
I agree with Paul, because I think it goes with Grayling Township, to they want to wait for it, not
the motion was to table until the FOIA was, came back from the EDC, to table it for the decision, I think is what we were saying.
Table until we could review that for you. I'm sorry, didn't clarify that.
Roll call vote on that as well. Right, Lacey, would you?
No. Was it supported?
It was.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I support it.
No.
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 Yes.
Yes.
No.
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 You said the motion failed. Okay, so next part of our agenda would be then if we're going to move forward, so we want to make a motion on that.
I make a motion that we approve the sale for the Saab company.
Do you have a second? Discussion.
Don't think it's a good idea. I've said it, I don't want to repeat it, but I don't think it's a good idea.
We've got a large number of our public outcry to us that says they don't want it. We support our community, and it does not fit within the guidelines of what our purpose is. I just don't support it for that reason.
Any discussion? Okay, so we'll roll call vote. Lacey?
Yes. It's gonna be countered by other votes, but I'm gonna say no.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
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 Motion is held, the motion is passed. Okay.
I'm gonna ask that we take a 5-minute break, I can go back and.